Good evening, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome aboard to WOR. This is the Legacy Division, and it's proud to be alongside you. It is Jota alongside Callum G once again for the race here at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Welcome to Imola. Glad to be alongside you for this one, Cal. We're going to be in for a very intriguing event ahead of us. We are live for what is, I think, going to be a very, very interesting event in WOR Legacy because we have a championship now on the line. And it is going to be none other than the man of the moment who's just setting himself out on his first cycle lap, Otis Lawrence. What a season he has had as the Mercedes driver, leading the way in the personal drivers' championship and, of course, leading from the front for FRA. This is going to be a race that you guys are surely going to want to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. It's good to be here once again, site at Imola, as you mentioned, Jota. It's a good track, and it always brings pretty good racing. As you also mentioned, Otis Lawrence, big night for him tonight to see possibly his first championship on Xbox. I don't think it's a matter of if, it's just a matter of when on both sides of this WOR league, but it's a very impressive season for him, and it could be capped off pretty well. I say capped off, there's still 5 rounds to go, but yeah, a good night tonight from Otis Lawrence. Could see him win that drivers' championship. As much as this is a teams tournament, it's always nice to get that individual accolade. So yeah, it should be a good one tonight, and yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to it.
And very briefly before we do get going, I do want to pass on my personal thank you to the various league communities across this world that we have, of course, not just in WOR, but of course in the affiliates alongside with TPS, Synergy as well, all of the teams that I'm affiliated with. That in relation to my commentary, of course, I have not been very well. I've been in ill health both physically and mentally, so I've got to offer my really big thank yous to all of the drivers and all of the runners for their patience as I continue to obviously heal in my personal endeavours. But whilst this is all happening, we'll just bear in mind what's happening with Otis Lawrence at the moment. Sector 2 he is currently in at the moment. Now just heading himself in the second sector. He'll want to keep it nice and tidy because he's just managed to get through Piratella no problem at all. He's through Acqua Minerale now and he's keeping it nice and tidy. We are going to see, I think it's going to be particularly a big hotspot, isn't it, Acqua Minerale, for maybe mistakes here, there and everywhere. Here they are through Variante Alta and on for a particularly, I think, historic victory in this inaugural WRLD event is Otis Lawrence. He's been absolutely flying high, and as he gave to us not too many weeks ago, he said that he was moving over to PC, and his PC equipment surely is going to be heading on its way very soon. Either way, there's the first lap time to start off with in this Q1 session. It's a 15-0.
Yeah, very good lap there from Otis Lawrence. He doesn't need to do an amazing lap for his first time. He's just got the pace and he'll be pretty comfortably through with that time. Just looking BRT Justin it is at the moment. He's coming into Variante Alta. Another very tricky corner, and he's established that pretty easily there. He's made a big mistake of that, and yeah, missing turn 14, the right-hander, and the left-hander's all messed up. So not a good lap there from Justin so far, but we'll keep on board with him through turn 16 and then out through the last two of turn 17 and turn 18. He needs to try and make a little bit of time here if he wants to try and get in a good lap. But yeah, he's got a little bit of making up to do currently. No lap time to his name. It's a 15-0 from Otis Lawrence, and Justin is a long way off that. It's a 16.781 to his name.
Yeah, his teammate Magician just heading around now into Villeneuve at the moment. Through this first sector is Magician, as we've just seen here. Zephyr come across the line in the Alpine, 1:15.7 for him. As it is a purple first sector, and he has actually beaten Otis by half a tenth in the first sector, has Magician. So he is currently keeping within touching distance of the front here. The question is how is that second and third going to look? And through the second sector, looking a little bit sheepish, I have to say. We'll see how Acqua Minerale is. Don't take too much curb, and you're going to see your car flying all over the place. But so far, actually pretty clean so far from the McLaren.
Yeah, it's actually looking pretty decent so far when you look at compared to his teammate coming through this pretty tough section. Variante Alta once again. I think that's a big one for tonight in the race, also qualifying as well. It can be really awkward that the curb on the inside can really throw you off, and for good measure, the second part of it as well, turn 15, very awkward as well. But as you said so far, good lap from Magician. He navigates these final two corners pretty nicely as well now. And it's flat to the floor, all the hard part's been done, it's just driving to the line now. What lap is it for the McLaren? And it puts in P2 at 1 minute 15.4. Not bad at all there.
Yeah, good first sector. It's just unfortunately the third sector did not match up with the pace. The second sector not too bad, but still a little bit slower than with an Otis, who immediately retires from Q1. He's very happy with that immediate 15.0. Passy, by the way, while this was all happening, has managed to get himself into 4th with that 15.9, as we'll actually follow the PSR driver of Sav. Now, Paradox Sim Racing is a season, really, of highs and lows for this team, to be fair. They really started off very well, actually, both not just in WOR, but also in their own sort of team tournaments as well in TPS. And then it's really been a bit of an up and down sort of season so far for Paradox. They've been sort of on the pace, but then the consistency's been a little bit off.
Yeah, you're probably right there, and I think unfortunately they're racing at the same time Otis Lawrence is, and I think anything looks a little bit off when you compare it to him, but actually I think they've been very good. I can't say I know how well they're doing in their own series of PS, was it Paradox Racing Series, whatever they call it, TPS, that's what they call it. Can't say I know they're doing this, but I think in this they've been alright. You know, they're P2 in the driver standings, constructor standings, sorry, and they've been pretty comfortable in that spot. They're well off it compared to FRA, but I think unfortunately they need to just kind of accept that, and I think they should be happy with P2 because all the drivers in PSR have drove very well this season. If it's either been Scyther, Sav, Connor, we've had PSR Nick as well this season who's drove fantastically, and a few others as well I've not mentioned. So yeah, I think PSR, much as they probably won't win it this year, I think they can definitely be happy with how themselves and their drivers have all performed.
Yeah, 15.4 at the moment as he comes across the line for P3 as it stood on that particular occasion. Good lap time indeed, as we just keep an eye out on the Hastavis Fantomasi now, as he's just now heading into the first selection of corners and then heading through Valiante Bassa, and they want to keep it nice and tidy through Tamburello and then into Villeneuve. It's going to be fairly important here for Istvan Tomasi because we haven't really seen him qualify so far throughout this season. I think the last time I saw him in this particular tournament anyway was actually back in Saudi Arabia, I think it was, and that wasn't exactly the cleanest of run from Tomasi, so he'll want to try and sort of bounce back if he can from what was a little bit of a tumultuous time in the desert. Of course, now arriving here in San Marino, Italy, San Marino or Italy, as they head through into what was a very, very tricky Acqua Minerale, looking a little bit sheepish on the throttle actually as he now heads into Variante Alta. A bit more curb actually from Tomasi and some of the other drivers, who's willing to take a few more risks.
Yeah, it's quite impressive actually, and sometimes you just need to do that. Maybe he just thinks the pace isn't enough to be cautious, he has to really send it, and yeah, we've definitely seen that there from Tomasi so far. He'll be looking to bounce back. I think his first race was Silverstone in World, if I'm not mistaken, so I think he'll be looking to try and do well once again, because I think he scored points in his debut, and at the moment he's doing not too bad, a 15.7 for the Haas, and I'm sure he'll be pretty happy with that time.
He certainly will indeed, as we just take a look at what's happening on the live stream at the moment, which for some reason has just decided to cut out ever so slightly and trying to figure out what's going on there. And there we go, there we are, all live and good now. Hopefully all live and dandy now, as I'm hoping that we get to see the standings actually, because it's going to be a conversation I think we need to have very briefly actually about those standings. There they are, lovely. So that's the situation at the moment in WRLD. Future Racing Association, the Fiore Racing Association. Wow, I'm mixing up two team names there. Leading the way at the moment, quite a long way as well, obviously, and that is obviously not just the performance of a fantastic Otis Lawrence this season, but FRA in general have been really on it throughout this season, and they are going to be ones to watch. Shazoo coming across the line with Venom with a 15.7. VSR, as typically as you would expect from VSR, hugging each other very nicely indeed, and this time incredibly close, 1,000 of a second separating them. But of course we are still waiting on a very, very quick driver in LCR Leopard, who's just about to start his lap, as we're just on board with FRA Pisti, as he's now heading through Variante Tamburello.
Yep, Pisti will be looking to try and get a good lap time here, not set one yet, and that is not ideal with just about 6 minutes left on the session. Leopard as well, he's another one to keep an eye out on, as much as he's a fantastic driver. And sitting P3 in the standings, the last few races, certainly not be going his way. He finished 10th in Monza, he then finished 9th in Silverstone, and then he finished 8th last time out in Austria. So the results not really been coming his way for Leopard, considering we're used to him kind of being constantly up there, and those kind of podium positions are in and around it at the very least. And then once I spin there, and he's out! Oh, actually, no. Leopard's out with the qualifying. And I'm just talking about how he's just not been going for him recently, and once again just showing that. LCR Leopard out of qualifying, and most importantly, he's not going to progress, and he's going to be starting P17 at the very best. Yeah, Mr. Consistency, not so consistent as he crashes just coming through Tosa. So that's one of the Shazoo drivers now, and that is actually going to be quite detrimental to Shazoo as well, because they're battling at the moment for P3 in the championship, and one of their fast drivers, no disrespect to Venom, out of the standings, as we do have one driver joining us, and it's the FGE Pat Lager in the Aston Martin, managing to connect
disconnecting just before the end of this qualifying session, as we now got up to 19 drivers in the session, as we just keep it out and see what's happening around the board at the moment. So VSR Akos, I have a sneaking suspicion, will be coming in at the end of this lap, unless he's on a slow lap. We'll have to see as he comes around the final corner, and I believe that actually might be out of fuel. Is Akos at the moment, so he's now just heading into the pit lane. But there we are. We talk about VSR. The consistency dropped a little bit midway through this tournament and midway through other tournaments as well, but really picking up the pace, and now VSR back to the position that we'd really expect them, matching their lap times, albeit by 1,000th of a second. This is what we'd expect from VSR.
Yeah, it certainly is. And VSR had a very good week last week. They stuck up 1-2 in qualifying. Otis Lawrence was in P3. Didn't really have much to say about it. And I think it was maybe I want to say Smokey and Choco. I could be wrong, but Choco is definitely one of the two. And yeah, they'll be looking to try and bounce on from that. They've got a pretty close battle for P3 in this constructors standings, but I say close. It's not really close anymore. 41 points between themselves and Shazoo in P4. But they'll be looking to try and extend that gap and try and cement their spot in P3, because, as you said, a bit of a topsy-turvy season for them. So, yeah, I'm sure they'll take that P3 spot. Just also want to mention FRA Peasty, he didn't set that lap. He came into the pit lane at the end of that lap. So, yeah, a lot of pressure on this last run now, and if he doesn't deliver, we could possibly see a big shock, another shock, in this first qualifying session.
Actually, I won't mind very briefly taking a look at those standings in just another second, as we just keep an eye out on ETE's Passy at the moment in the Alpine. They want to keep it nice and tidy, as Cypher getting within close proximity of Otis Lawrence. It's going to be a bit of a shocking scenario for Cypher, who really needs to find some pace against Otis this season if he wants to try and keep himself in this championship. As it stands, it's very simple. If Otis Lawrence manages to outscore Cypher by 5 points, he will be the inaugural world champion of this event, as Passy comes across the line for P7 with a 15.5 for ET. It's a good lap, actually, for the Euro Titans driver, as we'll just keep an eye out on ERL with Alpha Tauri at the moment. Now, it's a story of how the mighty fall almost for ERL. As I've mentioned a few times this season, it's a real shame to see them fall out of essentially the front spotlight, but they are now back on their rebuilding trail, as Farfo comes across the line and will only secure 15.9 on that particular occasion, so he'll be looking to have another go on that particular one, that's for sure. As we also keep an eye out, of course, on one of the other fast drivers out there, FRA Pisty, still yet to set a lap at the moment, on an outlap with 2 and a bit minutes to go here. Pisty, the second Hungarian hero around here, he's gonna be under a little bit of trouble here if he can't get a good lap in.
Yeah, he certainly will be, and this isn't an easy track for it either. You know, there's a lot of very unforgiving curbs, a lot of very unforgiving corners, so yeah, as you said, a little bit of trouble could be coming his way here. 2 minutes left in the session. That's just time for one run, so yeah, a lot of pressure on P3 to try and deliver, and yeah, it won't take an awful lot. 16.5 is P4 and 14 at the moment from Liam Harbin. So yeah, a little bit off the pace from these two guys. We've also got Pat Lager, who's just joined the session. He's also out on track as well. So only 2 drivers now going to be eliminated at the end of this session, but P-State will be making sure that he is not one of those 2.
So the situation report, then there you go. We'll have another look at those standings as we do follow Pisty on a lap now, as he's now heading into the first sector. Getting out of way is one of the Aston Martins, who Tamburello. Yeah, Fury at the moment on 269, Paradox on 180, Visceral 129, Shazoo 88. So they are on a serious push at the moment, are Shazoo, and obviously the loss of LCR Leopard in Q1 is not exactly what they're looking for. Fury can afford almost to lose Pisty in Q1, but ideally they don't really want to do that. They want to keep their team obviously in close proximity. And while this is all happening, of course, if you're out of the loop on what's happening, you may notice ET8 Esports and Velox are both sharing positions on the table at the moment. That's because ET8 have got to score their own individual points, despite the fact that they overtook Velox in the end. So they are clawing their way back up, currently on 15 points down in 10th place. We'll just keep an eye out then on Pisty and see how he's doing throughout the rest of this lap. Then it's going to be a fairly important lap for FRA here, because they want to make sure one of their key drivers is through to at least Q2. And he'll be now heading into the Ravazza corners, 17 and 18 respectively. Of course, Variante Bassa at the end of this lap, and he'll want to set a lap, and he is going to be setting a lap on this occasion. No invalidations, but where's he going to be putting himself? P3, just hugging in behind Scyther by a little bit less than 200ths of his second. Good lap.
Yeah, it certainly was. Bourbon Boy goes P12 as well, but it looks like he's going for another lap, just looking to see if there's anyone coming to the end of the lap. Is this Justin coming to the end? It doesn't look like he's backed off, so I think Justin, his qualifying's over, he'll be out, and Liam Hardin as well, he's failed to improve, so I'm pretty sure that is your grid for Q2, pretty much sorted.
Yeah, pretty much all done and dusted, as now the checkered flag is now out. Last laps are going to be on the cards here. Esteban Tomasi not improving from 13th. Bourbon looking to improve as well. Big thank you, by the way, to Bourbon. Oh, nearly as his teammate nearly getting in the way there. Big thank you to Bourbon as well for inviting me last minute into this session, by the way, because there were a few issues with trying to get me into the lobby, and he managed to sneak himself in a invite to me within a minute of 7 o'clock. So do appreciate that one indeed. We'll keep an eye out then on the rest of Bourbon's lap, actually, as a thank you present, shall we say, as he now heads to Variante Alto. Want to keep it nice and tidy, mounting the curves very nicely, getting a little bit too quick in the corner though, so he's lost a little bit of time coming out of 15, and that might cost him a little bit because it's going to take him all the way down to Ravazza, turns 16, 17 and 18, keeping it nice and tidy on the curb very nicely indeed. And we see a lot of people struggle around this corner with oversteer, but not so much on this occasion. The Aston Martin will keep it nice and tidy. Will he improve from P12? Comes across the line, and he does manage to improve, and now into the top 10.
Yeah, very good lap there from Bomber Boy, safely through. In the end, just want to highlight typical F1. I'm pretty sure this is his debut in World, and wow, what a way to start at P4 in the first qualifying session. Definitely setting himself up nicely. So yeah, just keep an eye on typical, possibly maybe a dark horse for tonight's event.
So there we go then, we're through then to the next round in this qualifying session, and as it stands we have lost Liam Hardman, BRT's Justin, LCR Leopard in shocking circumstances, and of course Dodo never starting a qualifying lap in the first place. So let's move forward then into Q2. Early indications suggesting Otis Lawrence actually might have a little bit of work to cut out for him here.
Yep, you could definitely argue that, and yeah, intriguing to see. But you need to remember as well, though, Otis Lawrence, first one to set a time, and he still manages to top the standings. So you could look at it that way, but then you can definitely flip it on his head. But it's certainly still all to play for with 2 qualifying sessions left, and yeah, certainly looking forward to how these next 30 minutes or so pan out.
Let's see what we've got coming up then. So Otis Lawrence leading the way at the end of that first qualifying session with that 1:15.0 that he set right at the start of qualifying as well. Scythe at 15.1 for him, Pisty 15.1 as well. Typical in the Haas, good lap from him as well, 15.3, 15.4 for Magician and Sav, as well as Finn and Akos, so all close proximities in there within the top 8, and 15.5s for 9th and 10th respectively. Towards the back, of course, Passy, Venom, Tomasi, Farfo for ERL with Pat Leisure rounding out the top 15. Hardman, Justin, Leopard and Dodo all out of Q1. Let's head then through to Q2. And first indications suggested to us that we're going to be in for a little bit of a monster qualifying here, and if anything, the session is suggesting that whoever comes out last is most likely to set the fastest lap they possibly can.
Yeah, we've seen a huge amount of track improvement there, and that is just a continual trend in full qualifying. So yeah, it'll be intriguing to see how these drivers do approach it. It's full dry qualifying and a full dry race as well, so nothing to intervene with that. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see now. There's a bit more jeopardy in the line now. I think it's a bit of an easy session for a lot of those guys, only 2 guys, and then getting eliminated at set times due to the retirement. So yeah, a lot more in the line this time, and yeah, should be interesting.
Certainly is interesting as well, as it looks like I've got some technical issues starting to bubble a little bit. I'm not sure what's going on that one, but fingers crossed everything should be all good and gravy now, as we'll continue on with this continued coverage of the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Welcome indeed to WORLD, as we are just looking at the situation with 14.5 minutes now heading into for Q2. Into a very, very interesting scenario. We've got a bunch of drivers all ready and raring to go, who are all very, very keen to get a lap on straight away, and 2 of them exactly actually very keen to get going here. One of the Alpines, I believe that is also the Mercedes of Otis Lawrence, heading out there as well immediately. And then, pardon me, no, sorry, that is Pisty leaving out immediately as well. One of the Euro Titans esports drivers leaving out in Neo Zephyr, leaving out there at the moment. And also ERL Farfo immediately leaving as well. So a lot of drivers very keen to get out there and have another feel of what Q2 is going to bring them.
Yeah, certainly. Bit off out of context here, but I was just looking at the standings, and I was just wondering how Otis Lawrence, like, you know, how many points he's got over the season. Otis Lawrence has got 207 points. Just to put that into context, PSR, the team who are second in the standings, are on 180. So Otis Lawrence entered himself as a team, just himself racing. He would still be top of the constructors at the moment. I think that's just a good point, or a good little stat to put into perspective how dominant he has really been this season. And yeah, I just thought that was pretty fitting for this time of qualifying.
Yeah, it's a cracking little bit of fact, that actually, isn't it? And just shows you the importance, the imperativeness that FRA have had in fielding Otis for this particular event. I'll be so happy indeed to hear that one. And of course, they have got amazing prizes all out there and available as well for the winner of the championship. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, him taking that on board and obviously managing to secure that prize as we follow Pisti around the final corner, and he'll be the first driver to set an initial lap here as he just heads through Variante Bassa. Gives us an opportunity actually to hand it over to Callum to take us a lap around this wonderful track in Imola.
Thank you very much. 19 corners here, and pretty much every single one has to be nailed. Starts off here at the Tamburello chicane, very unforgiving, very tough curves, and then coming through here for the left hander of turn 4 once again. All nice and tighty from Pisti. He's looking pretty healthy very early on, coming now through turn 5 and 6 once again. Very similar to turn 1 and not very forgiving. A big bit of oversteer there on the exit, but you know what? He's handled that pretty well through Tulsa as well. Nicely done there from Pisti. Nice and calm. I don't want to say nice and calm, but fairly clean lap so far. Just that one moment that's really just highlighted now through turn 9. Really tricky corner, especially on the exit. A little bit cautious there, you could see Gate definitely had a little bit of room for error on that exit now coming into turn 11, 12 and 13. Aqua Minerale, it is so tough. But Pisti, wow, very nicely done there. And now it's Variante Alta, very tough corner. Tricky curbs on the inside, tricky curb on the outside, and on this exit as well you can definitely lose the car, but Pisti, he's navigated that very well, and on for a good lap here is the Mercedes. Just now 3 more corners, turn 16, turn 17 and turn 18 are the last really 3 main corners. This is turn 17 and now turn 18 as well, 2 double left-handers to finish off your lap. And Pisti, I think he'll be happy with that one. Lap to the floor now, the hard bit is done. Let's see what lap time it is, the 1 minute 15.6. Oh, I'm not too sure if he'll be happy with that one in the end.
Yeah, Neil Zephyr coming across the line with an even slower lap time of a 16.4. He's 6 tenths down on his teammate on that particular occasion. Whether the track has got a little bit more greener or if just the drivers are a little bit on the slower side on this particular occasion is going to be the question on the marking here. So Farfo with a 16.0. Passy for Euro Titans Esports with a 15.8, as we just keep a very firm eye on what's happening around with Otis Lawrence at the moment. As Magician goes fastest of anyone with a 15.1. He's still a tenth down on Otis Lawrence, as we've got Otis very slow on this particular occasion. He's just slowing down, and I think wonder if he's going on a second run here or if it's just me seeing that he's meant to be on a lap, but he is apparently meant to be on a lap here, but he has slowed down to have another go at this particular one here. His softs don't look particularly great either, so maybe the track has just got a little bit greener between Q1 and Q2, which is not usually what you see in F1.
Yeah, it's a bit bizarre, isn't it? A lot of the times predominantly slower than what we've seen in the first session. Magician, probably the standout time there, 15.1, I think, is a lot better than what he did in the first session. So, yeah, that's an interesting one. Just for reference, it was a 15 flat was the quickest time at qualifying one. Magician set a 15.4, so a 3/10 improvement for him. But Pisti, though, he's a little bit off the pace considering the time that he set, and that kind of goes with everyone that set a lap time. So I'm not too sure if they went for a scrub set of tyres, or as you might have mentioned, maybe this track has just got that a little bit slower.
You know, keep an eye out and see what his sector 1 was absolutely blisteringly quick, was Otis's first sector. We'll see what his second is like, and that's an invalidation. So yeah, he is struggling out there at the moment, is the championship leader, and he's already got one hand on the trophy, but as he now heads over the bumps at the Aqua Minerale corners, he's not feeling very confident at the moment as the championship leader, so could be one to watch here. If he continues with that, he might be in danger. We'll have to see. Outlaps at the moment currently for the VSR for typical. Istvan Tomasi is also on an outlap, as well as the other VSR driver, the Hungarian hero, that is Akos. He's now just heading through Aqua Minerale himself here, so certainly indicates to me the track is just not really nice out there at the moment. The drivers are struggling a little bit.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. Virtually every time I've watched a full qualifying or commentated in full qualifying in the F1 game, the times get quicker. If it's dry, the times will just get quicker. That's how it goes. And yeah, maybe we're missing something. That my only explanation would be that it's maybe a scrub set of tyre for some of these guys. But I notice Lawrence struggling. That's a bizarre one. You don't normally see that one. So yeah, Lawrence has put himself under a little bit of pressure than what he probably normally wants to for this final run. But yeah, wouldn't be surprised to see him just kind of deliver on these final runs anyway. Just try to see if anyone's on a lap at the moment. I think it's Akos starting his lap, so yeah, just keep an eye on this Ferrari to see what he can try and do for VSR. Yeah,
absolutely. As we just keep an eye on what's happening with Finn as he's now heading through into the Tamburello chicane. As Akos is obviously the first driver, first Ferrari to be setting lap at out of the two of them. Finn with the fish helmet now heading through into the next set of corners at Variante Villeneuve through into Tosa, and looking a little bit more on the cleaner side here, as we've got a yellow flagged wave. I believe that's for a half-spinning car of Venom, as looks maybe even slowed down to cause that yellow flag. We'll have to see. Either way, one of the ERL drivers stepping out of the way for Finn as he now heads through the Variante, through Piratella rather, into Acqua Minerale. We'll keep an eye out and see how his lap comes in. It's all about Akos at the moment, because he is the front-running Ferrari at the moment, the front-running VSR driver, really throwing the car and mounting those curbs, actually. Very Charles Leclerc-esque, actually, as he now heads down into Ravazza, and keeping it nice and tidy is where he's going to be wanting to keep that car, and again mounting the curbs quite nicely, and not afraid to mount the curbs actually is Akos around here. We'll see how the lap comes out in the end. With the DRS open, the Ferrari will come across the line and go second overall with a 15.2. Finn, on the other hand, has invalidated his lap, so VSR leading the way at the moment with Akos, as the other driver is going to be without a lap time, as we just follow Scyther for PSR. He's the second place man, and let's be candid as well, the performances he's been putting in has been that you maybe have expected of a world champion. It's just that Otis has just been on another league this season.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that one. I think Lawrence isn't here, you'll be thinking, wow, this Scyther guy's the real deal. So, yeah, it's a real shame for him. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to see what he can deliver on the kind of second half of this game when we've got no Lotus Lawrence. But anyway, just looking, Shizou Venom at the moment, the second driver for Shizou. The Leopard already out, he's a lone man flying the flag for Shizou. It's a 19th flat, very off the pace there for the Red Bull. And, yeah, he'll certainly be looking to try and improve that lap time.
Keep an eye on PSR Sav as he comes across the line. 15.0. We're back into the lower 15s now. However, we still aren't seeing any 14s, and the track only just managing to get into the 15.0s, especially considering we're over halfway in Q2 at the moment. So clearly the track only just starting to get to maybe the pace of what you'd expect from the... well, what you'd expect from Q1, to be honest with you. So the driver's clearly not feeling comfortable out there at the moment. I'd be very keen to have a word with a few of the drivers actually about qualifying at the end of this one. I'm sure you'll be keen to hear and try and understand what was happening on track on that one, Cal, because the track just doesn't seem very nice out there at the moment, to say the least. Scyther goes fastest of anyone, and we're still only in the 15.0s at the moment with a 15.023. It's a cracking lap, but perhaps we would expect to see better. Are we going to see a 14 from Finn as he comes across the line? We're not, as the two VSR drivers once again hugging themselves, this time by just under 0.2 of a second. Sav won't be improving his lap on this particular occasion, but the FGEs rather, Pat Lager will be looking to try and improve if he can, as he now heads through into the Variante Alta, into Ravazza, and the Aston Martin looking very steady on the throttle, looking like this is more of a conservative lap coming up here, and the slowest of all the drivers when he comes across the line will be Otis Lawrence with that 1:25.6. Of course, not a representative lap time, absolutely missing the apex entirely through turn 18 as they head through Variante Bassa turn 19, as Palasia comes across the line with a P9.15.7. Lawrence still yet to settle up. He's a second and a half up in the second sector though, so he is feeling a little bit more comfortable out there as he now heads into the third sector. This is of course where we saw people slow down and saw him slow down, as he now keeps it nice and tidy through that final corner 18. A little bit of a snap of oversteer actually from the championship leader as he comes across the line right now and gets into the 1 minute 14s with a 1:14.787.
I'll never in doubt. Panic over for Otis Lawrence. What a lap time that is. Pretty comfortably clear to the rest of the guys, considering how close the rest of them are. So yeah, really impressive stuff there from Otis Lawrence, as we always see from him. So yeah, that's a good lap time there, and I'm pretty sure that is Otis Lawrence through into the final qualifying round.
Just keeping a very firm eye on what's happening at the moment in the field. It looks like to me is that we've got a few issues on Discord at the moment. I'm trying to get into the server, and it seems like we've got a few technical issues happening there as well. So it looks like the technical issues are just slowly but surely bubbling around the field. But as it stands at the moment, the headlines as it stands in this qualifying session is shocking turnout for Shizou at the moment. We've lost one of their drivers who have crashed at Tosa, and then Venom with a 1:19.0 well down the field at the moment. It could suggest here two Shizou drivers in 15th and I believe 17th respectively. This is not the look they were looking for.
No, certainly not. When considering when you're trying to hang on to trying to push for a P3 spot. They were very close to VSR in these last few weeks, but yeah, as you said, when you're looking at these results and these performances, they're just nowhere near it. VSR have kind of went up a gear and Shizou went down one in a sense. So yeah, not what you're looking for Shizou, and they'll be kind of looking. I was going to say looking behind them. closest to them are Velox in the standings, who aren't even racing anymore. So they'll be looking forward, Shizou, and yeah, unfortunately for them, they really can't go anywhere at the moment. They're just not putting in the performances, and that's probably something that is pretty bitterly disappointing to them. So yeah, Shizou Venom will be looking to try and improve. A 19 flat is well off the time that we know he can do. So we're looking for Venom to try and improve, and Leopard as well, who's obviously out of qualifying, will be looking to try and get some sort of redemption in the race as well.
Yeah, so Magician out there currently on a slow lap as he's looking like he's abandoned his last attempt on that particular occasion. Farfo also on an outlap at the moment. Zephyr also on an outlap. So it's all about what these drivers now are going to do and whether they're going to attempt at least to try and improve their lap time. And as it stands at the moment, we're only 3/10 faster than we were in the first lap, on the first qualifying session rather, which suggests to me the track is still not 100% nice out there. As we follow the McLaren in that special livery, of course, I think we're going to have that special livery for at least a week before we see, obviously, the update from Formula 1, which may see that McLaren livery removed, which will be a bit of a shame. This is a beautiful livery. As he now heads through Villeneuve, does Magician looking to try and improve in the first sector if he can, and he does, but only by 0.02 of a second.
Yeah, not a lot in it, but I don't think he needs a lot of improvement. I had this he's sitting fairly nicely in P4. Akos retired. The top three have all retired. There's also Magician. He's just going for a glory lap now, but he's got the pace for it. But an invalidation there is just going to strip all that glory. So unfortunate stuff there for Magician, but he will not be improving in this station.
Yeah, to be expected, unfortunately. That would be invalidated when you're that far off of the circuit. We'll keep an eye on Bourbon then, as he's now heading through the first sector. He'll go through Villeneuve. It's been a good session so far from Aston Martin. 2 drivers in the top 10 in Q2. It's going to make for a very interesting scenario, but 46 thousandths of a second down in the first sector for Bourbon, but we do know that his second sector lap time was a little bit down in compared to the field of drivers around him, so that half a tenth may end up becoming a feature. And you can see there, look how little error he was giving himself, room for error rather, through there. So how much room for error rather he was giving himself through Peratella. He just absolutely was refusing to touch the curb, but he's still 2/10 up in the second sector as a result. But that's a very poor alt. He goes in there too quickly, and he's just invalidated. He's just decided to abandon that one on that particular occasion. You can't blame him, to be fair.
Yeah, it's a shame. We are just trying to see if anyone else come to the end of their lap. I think the main one was possibly Piste. Yeah, it was not really at the end of his lap, but certainly in the hearts of it. 2/10 up was the little figure on my top right of my screen there, so if he keeps this up, he should hopefully see himself through, but he's put himself in a pretty tricky situation down in P11, so certainly all a lot on this final lap coming into Variante Alta now. The 5/10 up, wow, this could be some lap from FRA Piste. He nails that section there, certainly leaves a little bit of room on the exit, but definitely on for a good lap. Now just Ravazza, 16, 17, 18 and 19, 4 corners left, but 2 real proper corners. This is Ravazza 1 now, 4th gear for him, using all the curb on the exit, and he really nails that apex as well. He's a great lap here for Piste, and possibly could this be the fastest lap time here? DRS open, he comes across the line, it's a 14.9, and that makes it an FRA 1-2.
Yeah, absolutely outstanding lap, to be honest with you, from FRA Piste. If anything, it was just the first sector that let him down, that we missed. That second and third sector, he absolutely pushed the car to its absolute limits, making that FRA 1-2, and that will be very happy on the eyes of the Fury Racing Association down there, and of course beating PSR, who currently have a 3-4 as it stands at the moment. Let's keep an eye on Istvan Tomasi, looking to try and improve his lap as he stands, and he's got definitely a looser rear end as he's at the back at the moment with that 16.2, so he's got plenty of time to find, but he's definitely looking to push the car to its absolute limits as he now heads into Ravazza. That's turn 17 into turn 18, and of course that little kink of turn 19 at Variante Bassa as the Haas will come across the line to try and improve again to get to the top 10. He cannot with a 1 minute 15.554 and matching Bourbon's initial lap time of a 5.54 himself, but he's improving by a tenth and a half in the first sector. This is improving if he needs to try and get to the third sector and try and beat it if he can, but he's still beaten by 15.4, and he is not the lap time that is going to get him out of Q2. FGE's Battlesia also abandoning his lap, which will look like they were looking into a fairly sharp scenario of getting through to Q3, only just missing out through Bourbon though by a little bit under 200ths of a second. ET have got a driver through at the moment as it stands with Passe. Venom only just sneaking in as well. Shazoo will be happy at least one of their drivers is through to the top 10.
Real shame there for Bob, and boy, a podium last week in Austria, and I thought that could have been the making of him, but yeah, real shame for him, just narrowly missing out. And qualifying 3, but certainly we'll be looking to bounce back. FGE 36 points in the standings and definitely coming along nicely in the last few races. They've scored 22 of their 36 points just in the last 2 races alone, so certainly some pace is starting to show, and yeah, looking forward to see what Bobbin Boy and Pat Leggett can do respectively in this race when it comes around.
So let's have a look then at those standings as we just see one of the Red Bulls now heading in. That'll be, of course, one of the Red Bulls, the Assault Red Bull of Venom, now heading into the pit lane. Let's take a look then at the end of Q2 as we see right at the top of those standings, FRA are absolutely powering their way through to a potential dominance here with Otis and Piste leading the way, 0.12 seconds separating the pair of them, and then it is the PSR pairing of Scyther and Sav in 3rd and 4th respectively. They're only separated as well by a very short margin of 19 thousandths of a second. It's Finn in 5th place for VSR, and a slight differentiation between him and Akos at the moment, split by Typical and Magician for McLaren, Venom and Passy rounding out the top 10. Those knocked out, Bourbon is Fantomasi in 12th, and Zephyr for ETE and Pat Leisure also out alongside ERL's Farfo. Let's head then through to Q3, and early indications are suggesting once again PSR and FRA are fighting out at the top.
Yes, nothing new there then with Lawrence, just showing that he's got the pace yet again round here, so yeah, looking forward to see what qualifying 3 can offer us, but if I was a betting man I would certainly be putting my good money on Otis Lawrence to get this pole position.
Let's see what happens then as we load it into the lobby. We have 12 minutes to decide who is going to be the driver on pole. Otis really could do with starting at the front if he wants to try and wrap up this championship so early on. He's had an absolutely monumental season. The guy is going to be leading on surely to bigger things. He's heading on to surely esports scene, you know, through PC later down the line. Of course, I think we are going to see Otis Lawrence in bright lights within the next couple of seasons, surely, to be in that fight for the esports hunt. And to be fair, it's been an absolutely monumental achievement from where he's come from. And where did he go? Where did he come from? Cotton Eye Joe, first place, leading the way. He's been absolutely fantastic to watch, and it's going to be a thoroughly enjoying scene here if he does end up winning the championship in Imola.
Yeah, it certainly will be. It just kind of shows how dominant he's been, and yeah, as you said, the esports bound is the only way he is going in at the moment, and yeah, obviously it's slightly a lot young for esports, funnily enough, but give him a couple of years, and yeah, Otis Lawrence will no doubt be in esports. So yeah, just embrace it while you can, because I think sometimes you take it for granted. You go, oh, it's boring, he's dominating it, but sometimes you just need to appreciate the true greatness that we are witnessing. Certainly a bit of greatness right here with Otis Lawrence, because he has absolutely dominated both World and also at WR Tier 1. So yeah, really impressive stuff. However, it's not done yet. He's got 10 minutes left to qualifying and around about 30 laps in the race to try and save this Drivers' Championship.
He absolutely does, as it looks like we've got some further technical issues arriving right on the scene. I do apologise for those issues, as we'll just continue on with what has now become the radio show as it stands, as we now take a look at what is happening with PSR Sav. He's the first driver out there at the moment, as both PSR drivers very keen to get going very early on, aren't they? It seems like they want to sort of make their mark early on here, and maybe are they trying to flex potentially a little bit of muscle? That could be the argument that I think they're trying to maybe achieve here in this particular one. That is for show, as we're just seeing them coming around the final corner now, and we see them finally as we get back on with the stream. It looks like Sav absolutely trying to flex his muscles and try to potentially also give Scyther a little bit of a toe on this first occasion.
Yeah, it could possibly be that. Not too sure how much Scyther will benefit from that, but these two certainly looking to try and go out and say it and like trying to make a bit of a statement. But it is not easy at all. When you've got Otis Lawrence starting a lap just behind you as well, there's certainly all to play for. But it looks like Otis Lawrence is doing 2 laps. Interestingly enough, he's backed off. As soon as he started the lap, there was nothing about it. So is he looking to try and do 2 laps? Burn a bit of fuel. That looks like that could possibly be the strategy from Otis Lawrence.
We'll have to see either way. He's just heading at the moment around on his lap as we continue on with Sav at the moment. It was just invalidated at Aqua Minerale, so he'll be asking the question of Scyther immediately, who also invalidates Aqua Minerale. So PSR in trying to maybe release a statement to say we're going to be the first out, or immediately the drivers that make exactly the same mistake at Aqua Minerale. So not exactly the finest way to flex a statement on that particular occasion, as Pisty comes across the line to start on his lap here. Let's go back to Otis Lawrence, actually, as he's currently stuck behind one of the McLarens by the looks of things, the McLaren and Magician, as BRT as a team Looks like he's going to just get out of the way here, but I'm wondering if Otis was held up a little bit. He's in the second sector. Apparently it's purple, and the fastest second sector for anyone so far, but if he was held up by the McLaren, this lap is not something we're going to be keeping an eye out on. We'll see how he does then through the final selection of corners through Ravazza, and it certainly looks like to me as if he has actually backed off because he's got plenty of ERS at his disposal. So this is not going to be a lap, I think, that we're going to expect usually from Otis Lawrence. He comes across the line, it'll be the first initial lap time of 1 minute 23.1, but he's definitely got far more pace to find than that.
Yeah, I think it's similar strategies from the pair of them there, actually. Just looking to try and burn a bit of fuel and waste a lap. So, I think that is what we've seen as time started to come in. Now we've got Akos setting the real benchmark at 15.1. That's followed by passing P2 at 15.2. Very good lap time from the two of them there. Try to see if anyone's come across the line now. Is that was VSR Finn to make it a VSR 1-2 with a 15.2 as well. So good start there from VSR, and let's just see what the rest of the grid can do in response to those times.
Yeah, Venom comes across the line with a 15.3 of his own. Pisty now will be first of the FRA drivers to set a representative lap time as he hugs the inside line. And no, it is not going to be a representative lap time. It's a 22.6. So both FRA drivers are burning a little bit of fuel on this particular occasion. Otis is now 5.7 seconds up in the first sector, 7.4 seconds up in the second. So he's certainly finding a lot of time on this particular occasion. Clearly, definitely not pushing between them there, as we just keep a very firm eye on the final couple of corners here. And two turns, number 17 into 18 at Ravazza keeps it nice and tidy. Apart from that little bit of a snap of oversteer, we saw him do that in Q2. Is that going to be the failing for him as he comes across the line? And it's a 14.4 from FRA's Otis Lawrence. What a lap indeed from the championship leaders. We just keep an eye out on FRA Pisty. He's up 33 thousandths of a second in the first sector. In the second sector, he's up 5.8. So he's certainly finding the pace as well alongside his teammate, and in fact he has actually set a better second sector than his teammate on that particular occasion. We'll have to see how he does then. He's looking to at least get into the 14.7s if he can, will FRA Pisty, as he heads into the third sector. Bit of a lock up though, and he's going to lose a little bit of time through Ravazza, but much cleaner on the exit of that particular corner. Turn 19 comes across the line, 14.9 for FRA Pisty, so he does get into the 1 minute 14s, which is certainly what he wants to look for. Let's keep an eye out on Typical, as Crispy is very happy to see Typical now finally on the camera as he comes across the line. It's only a 15.8 for the Haas at the moment, as both of the PSR drivers now just going around the final section of corners. In fact, Sav has just started a lap.
Yeah, just want to briefly talk about Typical, not because, as mentioned by Crispy, but just because I'm very impressed with him tonight. So far, we both know him very well as a commentator in Tier 2, but I can't say it's been the best of seasons from him in Tier 2. I wasn't expecting an awful lot from him tonight when I'm seeing him in this lobby. This will be certainly a step up probably from that Tier 2 grid he races in every week, but so far he's delivered. As much as not the best of lap times in Q3, he has done so well to make it into Q3. So yeah, great performance from Typical so far. He's still got a couple minutes left as well to try and improve in that lap time, and yeah, really promising stuff from the Haas driver as we've seen so far.
Yeah, really good stuff indeed from the Haas runner as he now manages to sneak into P7 with that 15.8, but he has got a little bit more time to find if he wants to try and climb up this top 10 ranking, as we'll just keep an eye on PSR Sav. His second sector fairly decent, apparently purple, but I know for a fact he's down in the second sector on piss day, so he is looking to try and find a little bit of time versus maybe the VSR boys. Try and put himself in the low 15s if he can. If he gets to the 14s, that'd be even more magnificent. So Sav will now come across the line. He's looking to try and improve here. 1 minute 15s if he can, as he comes across the line now, and he actually gets a 14. He's in the 14.8s and has beaten Piste, despite being a little bit slower in the second sector. Beats Piste by over or just under a tenth, as Scyther, the man looking to try and keep the championship alive versus Otis Lawrence, will come across the line. He wants to try and get into the 14s, and he will indeed into the 14.8s himself. So PSR now second and third. Piste, I want to know how he's in the P4 at the end of this.
Yeah, Piste a bit disappointed with that one there, but still in a very nice position in P4. Magician as well, he's just starting his lap, so we can keep an eye on the McLaren, only man out on track, and he will try and spoil that party in the top 4 as well. As I've seen it earlier on in qualifying, he certainly got some good pace in that McLaren, so yeah, just keep an eye on Magician, because I think there's definitely a bit of pace in there. Yeah,
the BRT driver will be looking to try and continue on with more pace as where he can find it, as we just keep an eye out through the next selection of corners, then at Tosa. That's turn 7 if you are not familiar with the corner names here. Now this is technically turn 8, a little right kink, but it is basically a straight. Through into Piratella, keep it nice and tidy, don't mount the curb too highly and you won't spin out, and that is exactly what he's done very nicely indeed. Through into Aqua Minerale, 10, 11, 12 and 13, don't go too wide otherwise you'll invalidate. Very well taken from Magician, as he wants to try and keep it nice and tidy as he heads through into the Variante Alto, and it is a very good second sector actually from Magician, as he'll now head through into the final selection of corners at Ravazza, turn 17 and 18, and you'll want to try and go through here around about third or fourth gear if you want to try and maximise your speed here, or traction rather, as he now heads through, and that is a very well taken turn 18 actually, into 19 at the Variante Basse. He'll come across the line with a 14.9 of his own, so we're starting to see the 14s come into play, but a really good lap from BRT driver.
Yeah, it certainly was. P5, I'm sure he'll be happy with that one in the 14s. I don't think he could ask for much more than that. However, only 3 minutes left on the clock, I should say, and probably no more lap time coming from Magicians. That might just leave him vulnerable to the two VSR guys sitting there, P6 and P7. They'll be looking for better than that, so Magician is happy at the moment, but he definitely has the potential of dropping down maybe a position or two.
Let's have a quick little bit of a conversation about Typical then, because Typical will be the next person to set a lap, assuming Magician is not going to be setting another one, as he's now about to be overtaken on his outlap actually, is the McLaren BRT driver. Let's keep an eye out then on Typical. Let's give him some airtime, as Crispy is absolutely wanting here, as I'm sure you do as well, Cal. The Novus Racing driver, what indeed is his performance? 15.8 at the moment and well down the field. He's definitely got a little bit more time to find. We do expect a bit more from him on this occasion. He hasn't really sneaked in to Q3 either. He's had the pace all the way through this qualifying session, so I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what he's going to bring to the race, as he may be in for perhaps the fastest midfield runner out of those out there at the moment, and especially they're going to need the points as well on Novus, because they're down in 11th as it stands, with the last race that they managed to get, I think it was nil point actually, in Austria, as they head through now down the Variante Basse. Typical will be the next person to settle up, and we'll go on board with him actually, and Cal, it's going to be a fairly important lap here for him.
Yeah, it certainly will be. I think there's probably not a lot of pressure on Typical. I don't know if there's an expectation of him to get through to Q3, but I don't think there probably was. So I think he's happy to be here, but a good lap time could certainly spoil some upsets. But I'm intrigued to see if Typical goes about this, because I think personally, from what I remember seeing in Tier 2 most weeks, is that qualifying actually is a very strong point of Typical. I remember not that long ago, Abu Dhabi was the race he qualified P2, P3, but then dropped off massively in the race, and I'm just worried that possibly could be the same scenario here tonight. But so far, he's been very impressive, and not too bad in this lap as well. So yeah, just keep an eye on this Haas, but could definitely be on for possibly a top 6 start here.
Yeah, we'll try and beat the VSR boys if he wants to get into the top 6, though. It's going to be a hard bar, but look at the amount of time he's found. He's found 4.48 tenths in this particular lap here, and that is exactly what he is going to be looking for as he now heads through into turn 16, which is this little right kink here, into 17-18 Ravazza. Want to keep it nice and clean over the curbs if he wants to mount them, and very well taken that rear, wanting to step out but managing it very well is Typical as he hogs it to the inside line. Where is he going to put himself? And right there, as you rightfully predicted, 15.0 P6 for the Novus Racing driver. Good lap time indeed, as we keep an eye out on Otis as he is looking to try and improve his lap here. It's a last ditch opportunity here to see if he can get anywhere near esports pole. He's actually 2/10 off of the fastest esports pole in the real life esports tournament, so this is a proper lap time indeed, and he was a tenth and a bit up actually, so he would have been close to esports pole if that lap had been valid. That just shows and flexes the muscle and the ability of Otis Lawrence throughout this season. Has been absolutely magnificent to watch indeed, as we keep an eye on PSR Sav as he'll now head through turn 19 and keep it nice and tidy. Did Sav. He's not going to be anywhere near Lawrence, I don't think, as he comes across the line and does improve by a tenth and put himself into the breathing distance maybe of Otis, but it's all about Scyther here. Of course, this is the man that is going to want to try and keep within touching distance of the championship leader, and it was a very poor Aqua Minerale, and he's actually only found a three quarters of a tenth as a result of that one, and it is a very scruffy lap indeed from Scyther. He's pushing this car to the absolute limits as where he can, but as it stands at the moment, he's not going to be putting the car anywhere near Sav, never mind Lawrence, as he heads through into the final couple of corners. This is a very important Ravazza here, as again that car just not wanting to stick to the ground. DRS Open comes across the line and will go into P2, but with a 14.6, it is the championship leader on pole.
Yeah, no surprise there, was it? Oh, it's Lawrence. He's been pretty dominant all session and showing it there. Wow, a 0.286, I think it was he set, which was unfortunately invalid. But I don't know how close that was to eSports Pro. But wow, what a lap that was. A 0.4 in the end. What it was for Otis Lawrence. But yeah, certainly looking good, and certainly looking good to take this Drivers' Championship as well.
I mean, cracking lap indeed in the end from Otis Lawrence, 14.470, which was indeed an impeccable performance from the championship leader. Scyther, second place man, down by 0.2 of a second from his teammates Sav, Pisty, Finn, Magician, Akos, Typical, Passy, and then Venom, rounding out the top 10. So we now head through here. Esports poll, by the way, just on my recollection, was a 1 minute 14.272. He did a 2.86, which would have put him in very, very close proximity to that pole position lap, but of course it was invalid on that particular occasion. Again, just showing the muscle that he's got, and especially considering he's on Xbox and not PC, that is one hell of an achievement. We are heading forward to what is going to be a very interesting Imola race here, and early indications suggesting Otis Lawrence is going to be on for his championship here.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's been really impressive, and yeah, we do have a lobby restart as well, just so people don't think, oh, why is everyone leaving? We do have a lobby restart, but yeah, Otis Lawrence, he is looking very good, and I'm not too sure exactly what the permutations are for all of this, but yeah, I think if Lawrence does well tonight, I think the odds are certainly with him to win this title.
Well, you caught me napping there. I was just having a sip of water. Absolutely. Right for the point, that one. So, yeah, the migrating host is now kicking in. So we are just going to head over to the thumbnail as we just wait for the next lobby to be set up. Now, what's happening here? The reason why we're setting up a new lobby is because we do have grid penalties to apply from the Austrian Grand Prix last week. So, as a result of that one, we are going to just take a brief moment to sort of recall what's been happening over this race. And I tell you what, it's been one hell of a race, one hell of a qualifying so far, because in the end it showed that we've got some serious pace falling on the shoulders of PSR, but just in the end Otis Lawrence has just got that grip on the Xbox world at the moment. He is flying out there, and he's going to be a serious contender surely for esports tournaments in the future, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing where he's going to come and where he's going to go.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that one. If anyone hearing banging coming through the microphone, it's fireworks. It's not like a bombing outside my house or anything. I just had to quickly mute my mic there. I even got a fright there until I jumped out my skin. But yeah, on the Otis Lawrence, he's been fantastic. And yeah, I think tonight Imola is another chance just to prove it. You know, you've got, what, 5 rounds left, and it's just amazing how he can win it this early on. I think maybe World or WOR Tier 1, the kind of normal version, I think it's a bit of a different story, but yeah, it's amazing how far ahead he is. I don't think I've ever seen anything so dominant in a top tier. And as you said, I think esports found his only way this boy is going, because he's been so impressive. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see how he does tonight, if he can win it tonight. And yeah, just like to see how he treats the rest of the season as well, because he's got a big role to play for FRA as well in winning this constructor. So if he does win it tonight, I'm interested to see as well if that mentality stays the same, or if he does allow himself to kind of relax a little bit since he wins that Drivers, possibly wins it after tonight.
Absolutely. Let's take a look then at the current standings as they are. Then we have been sort of very briefly discussing what's been going on sort of within the world at the moment of WORLD. I get it. He has been absolutely flying out there and has been really pushing FRA towards what is going to be an inevitable championship, surely, because they have been unstoppable, have FRA this season. And I'm certainly going to be keeping a very firm eye on sort of what happens, obviously, over the next few races. 269 points means that there is nearly a 100-point gap between them and Paradox at the moment. So FRA are looking almost untouchable at the moment, and it's going to be interesting to see what they sort of bring to the table for the next few rounds. Paradox, of course, are going to try and throw everything at them to try and secure that championship with Visceral just behind, but they're battling more closely with Shazoo at the moment. But Shazoo are not having the best time of it at this moment as well, because LCR Leopard all the way at the back in this race is going to be an interesting one. And of course, massive gap because of Velox and World Online Esports, World Online Racing Esports, both no longer racing in this tournament. So it's all about what FGE can do in their battle with the likes of Bunga Racing Team and ERL Esports, and Ray Song Team, apparently, according to this graphic. Very interesting. FGE, though, leading the way from ERL Esports. They'll be happy to take that W if that one ends up being carried, with ETA Esports obviously trying to pick up the scraps of points from starting midway through this season. Of course, Novus and ETE also looking to try and get some scraps of points as well. So that midfield tournament's looking very spicy, 36 down to 9.
Yeah, it really is actually, and as much as there's not a lot of like prize money, or there's no prize money involved in the guys below them, the top three, it's certainly all very close, and it's been quite a strange one because we've had quite a lot of quite a lot of change in terms of the teams entering and leaving this tournament. It started off with WOR and DMS. And unfortunately, WOR, I think, I'm not too sure if the Xbox team's even still going anymore, but if it is, they left World anyway, which is a huge shame because we lost some fantastic drivers when they departed. AMS, unfortunately, only turned up for the first 2 weeks and also left as well. Then we had, then we had Velox Esports that entered the tournament as well, and they were very impressive. Yeah, Alex Harris is the main one that comes to mind. He had some fantastic drives in his short spell, but then they left after Saudi Arabia. So then entered ETA Esports taking their spot. Along this time, we had Bunga Racing Team as well joining us. So, and Novice Racing as well. How can I forget them? So a lot of teams entering and joining, but it kind of makes the standings look a little bit strange, but also makes it very close as well. So yeah, I think with about 5-6 rounds left, I think from about P5 to P13 is all very much to play for, and certainly something that I just would like to keep an eye out on because it's something very, very interesting.
Indeed. Certainly looking forward to seeing what we've got coming up then in that one. Anyway, let's head back over to the wonderful graphic that's made by Thod. It's been absolutely magnificent to see all these wonderful graphics being presented by him as well. So it's a big thank you to him throughout this tournament as well, of course, as he carries on with his amazing products. We will move forward into a very brief discussion about what we're going to head forward then into this race. We're going to be talking strategy here. The medium hard or hard medium strategy is the go-to strategy on this game. We are expecting that to be the same here, but surely we're going to see some people risk it here, go on to a set of soft tyres at some point in this race and really, really try and push the car to its absolute limits. I'm expecting likes of maybe ET8 or ETE, for that matter, to potentially try and risk that, to try and get those scraps of points, and that is going to make for a very, very interesting midfield race. So definitely worth keeping an eye out towards that midfield and towards the back of the grid here, because I think we are going to be on for a very interesting one strategy-wise, as well as for the race.
Yeah, it's always a bit of a strange one, Imola, in terms of how the race pans out. I think it's a fantastic track, one of my favourites on the calendar, but overtaking doesn't come necessarily easily. For the most part, turn one's your only real chance, but after that, the track isn't completely designed for real racing. It's turn one or nowhere for the most part. So it kind of leaves a lot of people having to do things in terms of strategy, because if you're stuck in a DRS train, there's a very little chance of you getting past if the pace is the same. So it just leaves that chance for people to do something a bit odd, or try and just extend this stint or pit really early, and it kind of leaves us out for some pretty interesting racing. So yeah, as you mentioned, just keep an eye out on those guys late, like kind of far down the midfield, be around that P13 area, because I think it's always a good opportunity to try and do something a bit weird and wonderful, and sometimes it does pay off, which always makes it that little bit more special.
So we are now in a lobby, are the pair of us, as we're just waiting for the session to get going, and I believe the countdown will slowly begin to this race ahead of us. Early indications suggest it's going to be flying high here. Is he taking this championship? And if so, is he going to be taking it via victory tonight, or who else do you fancy as race victor?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think if Otis Lawrence doesn't win it, I would go for her. I'll go for a Scyther win, a slightly boring one, but yeah, I think Scyther's probably the best man next to him, and the only time that Otis Lawrence hasn't won this year, it was Scyther in Monza. So yeah, I think Scyther's got the minerals to win, and I think a lot of people do in this grid, but he's always the man closest to him. And yeah, I'm intrigued to see if Scyther can take that fight to him tonight, and if he does, we'll be in for a great race.
You know who I think has got the biggest cojones, who will really, really push to try and take that victory and might just get it? If it's not Otis Lawrence, I'm going to put my 50 pence on Leopard, because I know his pace round here, and he is rapid, and I think if Otis, let's just say on a magical whim, ends up not finishing this race here, there could be the chance of a safety car. And I think with that safety car out here, Leopards always seems to be just there in the right place at the right time to just nail that down. And I think he is the dark horse in this race, alongside maybe the VSR drivers. So let's go on a little bit of a whim and on my final race in WRLD and just say, go on then, let's put it on Leopard. And at a track that you can barely overtake at in general, and he's starting towards the back, but that's besides the point. That's why I'm going to put my money anyway on that one. So let's see what happens. We've got a little bit of time before we get on with this race. Our final bit of conversation, I hope, before we get on here, and I think it's going to be a very short conversation by judging the amount of people that are now starting to ready up here, is, we're moving forward through this season now, of course. What would you expect these teams, assuming that the titles get wrapped up, we do have to finish the season. What would you expect from the teams going into this? Do you reckon that there's going to be more junior drivers coming into FRA, PSR, or would you expect that they're going to continuously field their best runners?
Oh, that's a very good point, a very good question. I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. I think if everything's wrapped up, I think maybe give it a few rounds when first place is sealed, second and third all places sealed. Then I think we could just be in for a bit of chaos. Maybe Otis Lawrence, he doesn't fancy racing the Friday night for 2 hours, so you'll give someone else a chance, and you might see the likes of Piste and a few other guys racing. I'm not even too sure what the other FRA drivers are. Matthew is the other one. Piste and Matthew, could see them racing more often. Just give chance to a few other drivers, try and prepare for the future. Because as we mentioned, Otis Lawrence, this is his last season on Xbox. He's away to PC this year. FRA will not have him in the likes of World next season. So yeah, it'll be an interesting point because obviously FRA would love the glory to win all the races or whatever, but at the end of the day, they might need to put the future first and give a chance to a few of the junior drivers, as you said, which could obviously leave for pretty interesting races. So yeah, the last few races this season could be pretty spicy.
So look forward to seeing what we've got coming up then anyway on that one, and obviously later down the line we may end up seeing some of the junior drivers stepping into the shoes of the main team as the season sort of gets wrapped up in WRLD in what is going to be a very interesting Imola Grand Prix. Either way, that is then, this is now, and we have got a very, very impeccable race ahead of us. Keep an eye out as we are going to continue on with our continued coverage of this Imola Grand Prix. We'll be back very shortly, indeed, for what is going to be a very, very hotly contested race. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome aboard to Imola. This is WRLD. This is the World Online Racing Legacy Division. Thank you very much for being alongside us for this one. It is myself, Jota, alongside Callum G, for what I think is going to be a very, very interesting event ahead of us. Cal, we are going to be heading forward to potentially a championship winner. Otis Lawrence potentially winning it with 5 rounds left in the championship as what has been a domineering performance from the FRA driver. But of course, constructors still yet to be decided. And it is all about what we're going to be having ahead of us for this Imola Grand Prix as we are going to take a look at that grid very shortly indeed. Cal, very good race ahead of us, I think. Take a look at then as it stands at the moment in the WRLD standing. So Fury Racing Association leading away at the moment on 269 points. Paradox on 180 with Visceral on 129 leading out the top three. Shazoo are tucking in behind, with battling with Visceral at the moment in P4, but they have got a driver down in the back of the grid with Velox and World Online Racing Esports both now out of this tournament. False Group Esports in 7th with 36 with ERL on 28. Bunga on 26, ET8 15, Novus 13, and then Eurotitans Esports on 9. The midfield runners are certainly going to be hoping that this season comes to an end, I think, very early, because then what happens is that those drivers may be in for some big points, as the front runners may decide to run with their junior drivers, as we may see later on throughout this tournament. So let's keep an eye out then, and let's have a look at what's happening as regards the drivers grid in front of us in this race here. And as we said, Otis is leading the way with first place leading on the hard tyre, with Scyther, then Sav, Pisty, Finn, Magician, Arcos, Typical, Venom and Bourbon rounding out the top 10. It's Fantomasi is in 11th place with Zephyr in 12th, Pat Leisure in 13th with Passy in 14th, Farfo in 15th with Liam Ardman in 16th. Justin is in 17th, and then Leopard in 18th with Dodo for ERL wrapping out at the back in 19th place. Leopard is the shock and horror of this particular event. Crashing out in Q1 at Tosa means that maybe his confidence is going to be knocked, but he is going to be a driver that's ever so consistent. Surely points are going to be on the board for Shazoo with him as well. Just keeping an eye on what's happening in the chat at the moment, as we just keep an eye on the tyre situation. By the way, Liam Ardman in the Alfa Romeo is still on the soft tyres. So it's going to be interesting if he decides to start on that one, with Dodo also starting on the medium. So in the chat at the moment, people in the chat talking about, it's no surprise, you won't be surprised here, is that it is all about Otis at the moment, isn't it? Because he is flying high, as he's within touching distance of the pole position in real life esports, albeit with an invalidated lap. I think it was 14 thousandths of a second separating him from the esports pole. He's in a position here where, the PC, I mean, this is a comment coming in from Jay, who says PC is 3 to 5 tenths a second faster than Xbox. So if he is in that pace, he is going to be monumentally fast when it comes to esports.
Yeah, absolutely. It has obviously had to do with the difference between Xbox and PC. I think it's very track dependent. So yeah, been intriguing to see how that kind of all goes. So yeah, it's a good point to make about the 3 to 5 tenths, but as I said, it's very track dependent. But Otis Theron's shown that he's got the pace anyway. Doesn't matter the platform, and yeah, looking forward to see how they can showcase this on the race as well.
Well, we're going to be looking forward to, I think, what is going to be a very intense race ahead of us. 10 seconds before we get going. Early indications suggesting Otis could be on for the first championship of this inaugural event of WORLD. Keep an eye on this stream, folks, because it's going to be a very interesting race ahead of us. The drivers are on the grid, and they're getting themselves ready for an intense race around Imola. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, and it's 5 lights. It's 5 lights, and they are a go. The drivers, here they are, and it's a really good start on that inside line from Otis. Lawrence holding off here from an attack from the two PSR boys of Scyther and Sav. Pisty also getting in the mix, as well as Venom is trying to make an overtake on the now drive-through penalty driver of Akos for jumping the start, as he now heads up though, and there goes off of the track. It's one of the VSR boys, I believe. Oh no, it was a McLaren, I believe, a BRT Justin, who's also out of this race as well, and it looks like a horrible collision involving him and Bourbon maybe, as we now have a full course caution, and we're now under the virtual safety car already.
Yeah, what a shame that was. It just puts a halt to this race start. VSR Akos is a pure disaster for him. P7 but also a drive-through penalty for jumping the start. I don't know how he's managed that one, but a rookie error there, and certainly a costly mistake. So really unfortunate stuff for him there. Neo as well there down in P17. He's at the poor start. Borbin Boy, he's into P18. I think he got caught up on that lap one turn one incident. ERL Dodo up to P13 though. Happy days for him and ERL as well.
Shizou boy Venom, he'll be very happy indeed. He's up 4 positions, up to 5th place at the moment. Finn down 1 for VSR. Of course, Akos remaining in 7th, but will have to serve his drive-through penalty within the next 3 laps after jumping the start, which I think has probably completely messed up VSR's potential strategy here to work with each other, as we typically would expect from VSR, as we're still under the virtual safety car as we continue on around into Vervatsa and then around onto the main straight, as the safety car, I believe, is now coming to an end very shortly, as Otis Lawrence will now be heading around through turn 19 through on Variante Bassa, as the safety car, virtual safety car, is now coming in. Venom now making a first pit stop, as is Pat Leisure. So a lot of drivers all now making a pit stop very early on. Even we are now heading, and we are green again here in Imola, so these drivers have all elected to make an early pit stop, but it might have actually cost them dearly if indeed they are thinking about strategy. But Scyther has not been caught napping. As it stands, Otis will still be the world champion at the end of this race, but Scyther has already pulled a second on his teammate and is putting Otis under some pressure.
Yes, Cypher's looking good. He's definitely looking up for it. Sav definitely caught napping though. 1 second is the gap between him and his teammate. Not very good when it's only lap 2. So again, not good stuff there from PSR Sav. He's got a little bit of work to do now if he wants to try and get within that DRS range. That does get activated next lap, but there's no DRS until technically lap 4. So you've got another lap or 2 to try and get back into that range. 9/10 of a second is down the gap. Sav, it's been a good lap from him there, getting back into that DRS range of his teammate.
As we're seeing from Scyther though, unfortunately, he's taking Variante Alta too quickly, and he goes into the corner hot, but then he ends up getting caught out by by how abrupt turn 15 is, because of course it's actually a bit above a 90-degree corner when you're going in at that pace, and that unfortunately is seeing him lose a bucket of time in the 3rd sector, and he's already now starting to lose out of the DRS territory of Otis here, as we started to see drivers already making pit stops. Actually, Zarkos serving his drive-through penalty, and in all that scenario, by the way, earlier on under the virtual safety car, Pat Ligier, Farfo and Zephyr were replacing their front wings. Venom made the call to switch on to a new set of tyres, but looks like by strategy, and that is not exactly the way that he wanted to do it, because he's been caught out by the green flag being waved, and now Shizou are out of the points.
Yeah, it's a weird one that, but maybe it might come back to him later on in the race. Just keep an eye out on that one. Sav losing DRS now to his teammate, 1.3 seconds is the gap, and he needs a mighty middle and last sector if he wants to get any chance of getting back in that range. Scyther, he's hanging on for dear life, 30% ERS. Otis Lawrence, looks like he's just got the pace advantage once again over Scyther, and Scyther with 9/10 of a second. He needs a mega Variante Alta now to try and get into that DRS zone.
He's going in too hot, and there he is off of the track, and this is the thing we're seeing with Scyther. He's pushing too hard, and he's overdriving the car, and now he's down below 15% ERS, and he's only just managing to stay within the DRS of Otis Lawrence, and that is not the place you want to be in here, because Otis could just breeze the car around and still be faster than the man who is trying to challenge him in the title, and it's 5%, and he will get the fastest lap of this race, but he did track extend quite extensively at Alta, and he is now got with the DRS available at his disposal. He is going to get closer and closer, but he's not going to have the electrical energy to fend off an attack from Otis if indeed he does manage to get the overtake done. While this is all happening, it's Fantomasi and Magician for BRT holding on very nicely indeed in a battle between BRT and Novus at the moment, as the Haas is getting closer and closer, but in the end holds off and stays in P8. Magician down 1 position overall. Typical though, up 2 positions. What have moved so far from Novus, who are in some really good position here for some good points as it stands. VSR Finn though keeping within the toe of Sav and Pisty. Sav already 2 seconds down on Scyther early on in this race here, but that ERS management has been so poor, 10% as he heads in to Acre Minerale for Scyther, and he is trying to hold on, but he is in some dire situation here, because if he ends up losing out on that DRS from Otis, he's going to be a sitting duck when Sav, Pisty and Finn catch up.
Yeah, he certainly will be, and it's not ideal at the moment for him, but it's just about hanging on in there. 14%, it's not an awful lot, but he is hanging on in there, which is the main thing. Just looking for the back. Sav, he has nearly broke that DRS to Pisty. Pisty just about hanging onto the back of Sav, so slightly just contrast to what we see out front is now the Mercedes just about hanging on to the Williams. He does get DRS, does Pisty on Sav, and that might just allow him to slightly close up to the back of that Williams.
Typical, hoping that DRS trains in front of him start to break up, because then he can start inviting himself into these little battles as well. Magician getting closer, but he's just under a second, which means he's going to be in a spot of bother here, as we're just keeping an eye on what's happening with Leopard at the moment, as Leopard and Dodo getting into a bit of a scrap, as Dodo shuts the door on the Shazoo driver. Liam Hardman trying to get closer now if he can to Leopard, as we've got a spinning car in. It's Zephyr for Euro Titans getting into a little bit of a spin. Looks like he's got into a spin heading through Alta, the Variante Alta down in P18. Leopard, on the other hand, though, just trying to get onto the back of ERL Dodo at the moment. Shazoo trying to make some inroads. Already 7 positions up, our Leopard is Leopard at the moment, and he's still got 50% ERS, so who says that you can't overtake around here?
Yeah, he's looking very good at the moment, Leopard. P points certainly on the equation now, but he needs to try and get past ERL Dodo. But it should be pretty simple, considering Dodo, he's not got any DRS in front of him, so Leopard showing that pace, and definitely, as you mentioned, a dark horse for a very strong result here if he can keep this pace and clean this up.
Currently on medium tyres, ERL Dodo as well, so it's within his interest that he holds back the hard tyre runners, but doesn't want to burn through the medium tyres too quickly. Indeed, he's on the inverse strategy, as is everyone else at the moment, as Neo Zephyr already in the pits now after 1 lap old hard tyre. This is his second pit stop of the race, actually. He's just been lapped by the front runners after just 6 laps of this 32-lap stint. So ETE not going to be particularly happy on that particular front, as he now just connects into the back of the battle happening between Magician, Tomasi and Passe at the moment. As we've got a spin, it looks like a very slow car, and it looks like it is actually the lapped car of Zephyr getting out of the way of that little battle, as he now hugs in behind his teammate in P9. Dodo, on the other hand, though, starting to get into close proximity here, and that lapped car could become a little bit of a problem if indeed he doesn't get out of the way too quickly. He could end up putting ERL Dodo under a little bit of pressure, as Leopard very keen to get a shift on here. Looks like this might be the lap he's going to put some pressure on the ERL driver once again as they head through Piratella, and once again LCR Leopard some serious pace around here. We'll see how he is through Aqua Minerale, as he is going to put pressure on the AlphaTauri. AlphaTauri not looking fairly sharp, actually, and looks like Leopard again just a little bit of a tank slapper coming out of there.
Yeah, it does look like it, but Leopard is not far off making that move for P10. Just looking further up the road as well, which has got more yellow flags. Is that for Pat Lager? I think it is. But just looking further up the road, Cypher, he's more than stretched his legs. Otis Lawrence, I should say, sorry, has stretched his legs up at the front very comfortably now in that P1 slot. Sav now under a bit of pressure as well from Piste for that P40 slot. But just now looking for Leopard on this battle for P10 all over the back of Dodo. And it looks like a pretty simple move as far as moves are concerned, and that is Leopard up into the point-paying positions. Yeah, up into 10th now, and that's the position that he needs to get that singular point. And he's going to want a little bit more than that, I think, as he now just gets past ETE Passe, as that is now an easy pass, I believe. And no, pardon me, that was Neo Zephyr, who is now spun as a lapped car, going through into what was that corner? That was very... No, it's Tamburello. Yeah, I'll get there in the end. No, it wasn't. Was it Tamburello? Yes, it was. It was Tamburello. I'm saying it now. It was Tamburello, Cal. He spun at Tamburello and did the Neo Zephyr, and that now puts him 58 seconds back on Pat Leisure, and now in serious risk of being lapped again within the next couple of laps here. And Neo Zephyr, I think, is a little bit out of his depth at the moment, bless his soul. Hopefully, fingers crossed, he can get a safety car in and have a chance of being able to close down on the pack. So, ERL Dodo at the moment is just trying to hold on within the touching distance of LCR Leopard, in hopefully to hold on to those medium tyres and try and match the strategy around them at the moment here, as we keep a very firm eye on what's happening in that midfield at the moment, because Typical is now starting a DRS train forming from P6 all the way down as far as P9, but Magician is hovering in and out of DRS, but he will have it on this particular occasion. Yes, he will. That'll be very nice for the McLaren. Just glide up to the back of Typical, who's having a fantastic race at the moment. P6 for the Haas, and I've not really think we've talked about him much. Certainly going under the radar so far, and is on for a good performance if he can keep this up. However, the ERS isn't looking good though for Typical. Is at 10%. He's really been pushing, and I think he could possibly feel the effects now with Magician, as you rightly mentioned, it's now creeping up to the back of this Haas driver. Just keeping an eye on the chat at the moment, since we've got Kuibal in the chat as well for NRX saying, what was that? And then Crispy saying, it's a lap car. Yeah, I apologise that I mixed him up with his teammate, but they are in close proximity. You wouldn't expect to be lapped after 6 laps, in fairness. No disrespect, is it, Neo? I'm sure you're racing the best that you can at the moment, as we just keep an eye out on that little battle happening with Istvan Tomasi and Passe at the moment, as Tomasi is now out of the DRS train
of GGY Team Magician for BRT, which is now going to offer the opportunity for Passy to get that little bit closer to the Novus driver. And Novus actually on for some good points in 6th and 8th respectively, so they need to keep up this performance here, because these are points that they desperately need at the moment in their battle at the moment with Bunga Racing Team and a bunch of other drivers, including the likes of Euro Titans in and around them in the championship as it stands at the moment. We'll keep an eye out on that one, as we keep an eye out on Finn as well, because he's now starting to get into that sort of territory alongside Pisty and Sav here, and he is sort of hovering in and around a second at the moment, as VSR Finn needs to really find a bit of pace and stay within this touching distance, considering his teammate is all the way down at the back of the field after having to serve that drive-through.
Yeah, it's Finn flying the sole flag for Ferrari, or VSR, I should say, as well. Akos, so he's getting along fairly well considering that drive through P15. And it might be P14 in the next coming laps. He's on a slight recovery drive, but I think Akos will be probably crying out for a safety car if he wants any chance of some points in this race, because that mistake virtually has ruined his weekend.
Just keeping an eye out as well in that midfield, where we have a look towards the front at the moment, and obviously Cypher really starting to lose some time to Otis. Now, I did say as soon as he was going to fall out of the DRS territory, the lack of ERS was going to become a serious problem, but he has managed to recover quite a bit now, just above 50%. ERS is now available for the PSR driver. That puts him 2.7 seconds back off Otis, but 2 seconds the gap between him and his teammate Sav. So still on for a double podium for PSR, as Pisty tries to make the overtake and make it a double podium for FRA instead. As we'll take a look actually in that midfield, as Neo Zephyr gets a 5-second penalty for completely obliterating the corners and crashing out of this race at Variante Alta. And that may bring out a safety car, because it is in a very precarious position indeed, is that Alpine. As the ETE driver, and ETE will not be particularly happy with the performance, unfortunately, of Neo, but he is now out of this race, and it looks like we're going to get away without a safety car in this particular race. 10 of 32, 22 laps to go, and we are going to continue on with no safety car on this particular occasion.
Yeah, happy days for most of these drivers. Yeah, that looks like Neo just straight line the corners and binned it in a wall. Could be wrong, but certainly seen some better outings. I've seen better 10 laps in my career of commentating. A bit of a disaster from Neo, and certainly will want to forget about this weekend. His teammate though, Passy, doing a good job in P9 at the moment. He'll be happy with how he's performed, started in P14, capitalised with a good start, managing to avoid all of that chaos, and at the moment is running fairly nicely, getting 2 points as it stands for ETA. So yeah, good stuff there from Passy so far. Let's just keep an eye on him though, because I think there possibly could be a move as well on the horizon.
22 laps to go in this race as it stands at the moment, and the Haas team of Novus are on the way to getting 10 and very, very important 10 points in the championship. The only issue is their main rivals, you'd have to say, BRT. I've got one driver in 6th place at the moment. The other driver is out of this race in Justin, but Magician has got 8 points, as 10 points will be coming in the way of the Novus team, so they'll manage to gain the 2 points on Magician, but it's not going to be that massive of a dent then I think they maybe want to. So I think Typical is going to have to start putting some inroads here, get within touching distance of Magician, and put him under some pressure, because at the end of it, Novus have got the 2 drivers in there, and they could be the team that could put BRT under some pressure. ETE, on the other hand, have got Passe in the top 10. Their other co-compatriot struggling and out of this race, but still on for points, and considerable distance between him and the very impendingly quick driver of Leopard. 2.7 seconds the gap between him and Passe.
Yeah, Leopard is no man's land at the moment, which isn't a good place to be at this track. DRS is certainly 3 or 4 tenths easily on that main pit straight, so it's losing out a lot of time there for Leopard, and it's probably pretty fairly frustrating for him as well, because he'll gain all that time in the middle sector of the first or the last sector as well, but he'll get onto that first straight and probably lose at least 2-3 tenths at the very least. So very disappointing stuff for Leopard so far, but if he can just keep plodding away, and possibly he could find himself in that DRS maybe around about the pit stop time.
Situation report then as we start the 12th lap, and as it stands, not much in the way of change between those that started on the hards, as they are just hovering in their own positions. As Pisty trying to get closer and closer to Sav where he can. He's actually found a couple of tenths over the last few laps, has the Hungarian hero, as the other Hungarian hero, Akos, unfortunately down the order in P15 at the moment, trying to gain on those, surrounded by a bunch of those on medium tyres at the moment. Pisty in touching distance, but Finn just holding on to DRS and keeping within the touching distance of those in second, those in third, fourth and 5th respectively. While this is all happening, by the way, Scyther really struggling at the moment. I don't know if he's pushed his tyres or if he's overheating on the tyres at the moment, but he's lost half a second, on his teammate Sav, who has really started to put a bit of a shift in here. And I'm wondering, is Scyther slowing down to try and monitor his own tyre temps, monitor his ERS, and think about his long-term race prospects? Or is he trying to help his teammate pull a gap away from the likes of Pisty? If so, that is going to be one hell of a team effort from PSR.
Yeah, it certainly would be, and it'd be intriguing to see. Intriguing to see if that was a plan, because it could certainly work out. But if it isn't the plan, then that's a bit awkward for Scyther. 4 seconds is the gap now as they come across the line to start lap 13. Scyther, he's just been outmatched, hasn't he, by Otis Lawrence. He gave it all in the first few laps. He tried to stay within that DRS, but at the end of the day, Otis Lawrence was just that too quick for him. Just kind of the story of the season, unfortunately. And I think I may be wrong, but I think as it stands, Otis Lawrence is your champion.
Yep, as it stands at the moment, Otis is the champion no matter what. Scyther needs to outscore Otis by, I think, 8 points, and as it stands, he's going to be losing points to Otis, which is champions material, as we just go through now into Tosa. And as it stands at the moment, Sav is just hovering outside of the DRS territory, and his teammate Scyther, who absolutely has got to have been slowing down to allow his teammate get that DRS and try and basically pull Sav down the straight with him, and potentially PSR could be in their own little no man's land race here and try and separate themselves from Pisty. And of course, if Pisty ends up being under pressure from the likes of Finn and Magician, FRA in the long run will end up losing points. So I can see the long-term reason as to why Scyther may slow down. The only issue is Sav is not capitalising on that. He's lost 3/10 in the last couple of sectors to Scyther, and actually Pisty is breathing down the neck here of Sav, and if anything, Scyther might have put himself under pressure from Pisty by slowing down. We'll have to see. DRS then available for Pisty as he now opens up the DRS, uses his ERS and puts it into overtake, and this move is looking pretty clean set and done here as he heads around the outside into the Variante Tamburello. They go side by side, but the corner is completely shut off by Sav in what is textbook defending.
Yeah, it was. It's pretty easy to defend that, considering this track, as long as you've got the inside. It needs to be something extremely special by Pisty to get by. So yeah, just not the legs on that Mercedes to get by this time around. But I don't think it's far off Sav. A bit of a poor lap there for his standards, and certainly just keep an eye out on him there. Just looking, this is Passy, and P9 all over the back of Tomasi. A little bit of is it alliteration? I don't think that's the word, but yeah, Passy to Tomasi, very similar words and very similar pace at the moment as well. But Passy will be looking to try and get by the Haas very soon, because at the moment he looks to be getting held up just ever so slightly.
Yeah, but he's pushing too hard though. He's got a 3-second time penalty for corner cutting and track extensions, so he is trying to get past this Fantomasi. He's just doing it in the wrong way at the moment, so he goes too hot into the Variante Alto. He slows down as a result, and the Haas is able to just get the drive out of the corner. Does Passy, but the Euro Titans eSport driver looking to get more than just the 2 points, but these are important points. Of course, at the bottom of the standings, out of those that are still racing in this tournament are ETE, and these are well needed points against one of their rivals. But look how the corner, the Hasses are just getting all of that corner, but the issue is that he's struggling for ERS at the moment. Is Fantomasi. So Passy's able to get closer and closer, but he's not using his ERS. So he's just going to continue on with the pressure of staying behind here. And actually, it's a very good couple of corners through Tamburello, actually, from Passy, as he tries to get closer and closer into that little battle. But again, not able to get close enough as they head through Villeneuve. Not a very good corner, though, from Istvan Tomasi in the entrance, but a poor exit from Passy. So they're just trading blows at the moment, but they're trading blows and hitting each other with their own fists.
That's a good analogy. I like that one. I think something though that's helping Tomasi slightly is his teammate of typical out in front of that DRS, just giving them that extra little bit of pace in the front, which is probably just keeping them nice and secure through any sort of serious threat from Passy behind. Cause I think if there's no DRS for that Haas, I think it's a simple move for Passy. So yeah, typical doing a great job of just protecting his teammate for that P8 spot as it stands.
Yeah, they need the points as well, as I said, to Nova. So they're battling with ET8 and they're battling with BRT at the moment as well. And unfortunately, one of their BRT drivers is in front of them in 6th place, while the other one is out of the standing. So they'll gain points, but just not that many as it stands, as we just keep an eye out on what's happening at the moment in the chat. There's Amine in the chat. Good evening to yourself. So asking the question, will it rain? It is very overcast out there. Callum G rightfully pointing out that it's not not going to rain, despite the fact that the conditions say it looking very much like we may see some. But as it stands, the weather forecast is not suggesting we're going to have that. It's Fantomasi in, though. It's the first driver of those that are moving off of the hard tyre under a strategy call onto a set of mediums now to the end of this race. But his medium stint is going to be longer than his hards.
Oh, very interesting. But I quite like that one. As we mentioned, we would expect to see something different from a few of these guys. The pace obviously wasn't there, as we've seen Passy getting pretty close to him in the last few laps. So he went earlier than others, but I think the medium certainly do have it in them this track. It isn't too bad for tyre wear when you compare it to others, so it isn't completely weird to see mediums go longer than the hards. But yeah, good stuff there from Tomasi. Looking forward to see if this undercut is as powerful as we think as well. I remember Ottmere, I think, did he not go for the undercut, or was maybe the overcut? It's one of the two in esports, and I think it did work out for him, but my memory isn't too great on that one. As Liam Hardman unfortunately picks up a 3-second time penalty. He's been running so well this race. Liam Hardman down in P10 at the moment. I see, but I should be up in P10 because that's a great performance from him so far. But that 3-second time penalty is slightly hampering him as Tamasi as well. Getting 3 seconds of the penalties just starting to flood in ever so slightly.
Pushing too hard while his tyres are still too cold for Istvan Tomasi, as Finn is now in for his pit stop as well. Piste stays out alongside Sav, but again Sav able to just hold on with enough speed down the straight to avoid an attack from Piste, as we do have a spinning car, and it is one of the Ferraris that have spun. It's one of the VSRs. It's Akos who has spun, looks like he spun it going through Variante Alta, put it onto the grass, and then his car was in a very unusual position, as we've got a battle happening here, as it looks like Venom is now coming in. So we've now got the old medium tyre runners coming on for a set of hards. Very early call as this Fantomasi now wants to try, if he can, and get as close as he can to those on the hard tyre runner. And obviously he is on a very, very, very large undercut here. But will those tyres go the distance is the question. Amine in the chat, still good that you're back, Jot. Thank you very much, buddy. I do appreciate your support. And again, just want to reiterate my thank you as well across the entire esports community for their support, of course, as I try to recover from a little bit of a bout of sickness, both mentally and physically. Thank you very much indeed, guys. Lap 17 of 32.
Just looking for P7 at the moment. Passy, their only man really looking to make the move. That pace is looking good in the hard tyres at the moment, but lap 18 is around about where we start to see some pit stops come into fruition. Otis Lawrence stays out. We've also got Scyther staying out, but Sav and Piste, but bit of contact there from Piste going into the back of Sav as we come into the pit lane. I think they do both just about escape unharmed, but that was very really close there for the two of them. But Piste and Sav, as I mentioned, come into the pit lane. Typicals in as well, but Passy decides to stay out. So a lot of a mix of strategy between the top 7 drivers there.
Really good pit stop actually from Sav. It looks like he was straight in and straight out basically from the Williams boys as they now head through. Istvan Tomasi is just coming around the final corner, so I'm not expecting him to be a threat to those at the front, even with the fastest lap of this race, but he could be a threat to his teammates as he just makes the overtake, and he has committed to the undercut, and he's now undercut his teammate, despite the fact the teammate has effectively helped him around this circuit to stay in front of the challengers around him. He has now overtaken his teammate, and he's over 2 seconds in front in a couple of laps here. And some people are going to be raising the question of, have I made the right call staying out so late on the set of hard tyres? Yeah, maybe not initially, but it may be a positivity side on the cards here for the rest of the drivers, of course, because those medium tyres will definitely go the distance. Magician has been pushing hard. I'm expecting he's surely going to be in at the end of this lap here, because he's now nearly out of ERS. So he's been trying to make the sort of hard tyres burn them out as much as he can, as he now comes into the pit stop for BRT. As BRT will now come in, the question is he now going to get cut out by Istvan Tomasi?
Yeah, just looking at P8 at the moment, it's Piste, but he gets stuck behind Bourbon Boy as he came out the pit lane. Bourbon Boy with damage, unfortunately, from lap 1. I think it was side pod damage. So he's not really at his best as Bourbon Boy, and you can definitely see this here. Piste all over the back of him, and importantly for Piste, they've lost that important DRS to Sav in front. As Bourbon Boy peels off into the pit lane. It's simple stuff there for Piste, but a little bit of work to be done now to try and close up to the back of that Williams of PSR Sav. Istvan
Tomasi is flying down the straight here, but he's not going to get caught out by the McLaren of GTYT Magician. It looks like he's managed to make the overcut work just ever so slightly. Stays out in front. However, those medium tyres are going to be relatively cold, so the next few laps are going to be pretty crucial here. Weaves on the track to try and get them warmed up as he now heads through Villeneuve. He's going to be very slow, you'd expect, through Villeneuve, as Tomasi now within the DRS of the McLaren, but he is out of ERS at the moment. He is really struggling as he's been pushing very hard indeed on these medium tyres, and he is getting closer, but surely by the time we get to Variante Alta, those medium tyres are going to be switched on for the McLaren. Otis is now coming in. It's all about what the other drivers are going to do in second and third place. They're still to make their pit stop, as Scyther also matching him on strategy. I expect Leopard is going to do the inverse strategy, and he might try and take the hard tyre to a soft tyre stint, in the hope, fingers crossed, that maybe a safety car comes out, as we expect from LCR Leopard. He's doing exactly that. We have seen him do this in the past, and he's doing it again.
Yeah, I like that from Leopard, trying something different. He knows he's not going to get like a top 5 finish on pure pace today, so yeah, just trying to do something different. Try to do something different and see if anything can stick, and see if he can try and get at least a good finish with the help of a safety car. Scyther coming out in P3, just ahead of his teammate Sav in P4, so that is good news for Sav, because now he's going to get that DRS vs Akos just add to his. We'll see he's now getting a 3-second penalty down in P16. But I just want to quickly mention as well, the powerness of this undercut has been pretty impressive this race. Just Tomasi is going to be my main example here. 2.6 seconds is the gap to his teammate Typical. Just remember, before he came into the pit lane, I think he was 8/10 behind him, so gained about just over 3 seconds there, and just really highlighting how powerful the undercut round here really is.
So the situation report, as LCR Leopard now gets a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. He's now beginning to push now on these hard tyres. Maybe he's now trying to get into a pit stop now at the end of this lap. We'll see. Either way, Sav is in within the DRS territory of Scyther to hold off from an attack from FRA Pisty once again. It's a nice little battle happening between the sole FRA driver and the 2 PSR drivers as it stands at the moment, as LCR Leopard does not make a pit stop and he stays out. So he is trying to maybe make this stint last to the soft tyre. And of course hoping for a safety car. He did hope for a safety car, I believe, in Saudi Arabia, and he absolutely made it work a treat. I believe that was in TPS, if I remember correctly. The safety car came out very nicely indeed for LCR Leopard to take a famous result for the Shazoo driver. But as it stands at the moment, the two PSR drivers battling with Pissy as it stands at the moment. While this is all happening, Fantomase is going to be just holding off of Magician, because Magician is now starting to pull a little bit of time on him. Typical, he's going to be knocking his door saying, you know what, I helped you round here, are you going to help me?
Yeah, you did definitely be thinking that's what's going through Typical's mind, because Passy was a little bit close to there coming out that final corner, as that is Liam Harmon getting up into P12 as well. Yellow flags, I think that is for that Pat Lager, I think it possibly could be. Yes, it is. Not a great date for him. So quickly back to that one. Passy looking very quick on the back of Typical, and definitely should be something to keep an eye out on. Passy didn't look too racy and too eager to try and get past the Haas, but certainly could be a move brewing within the next couple of laps.
It's Fantomasi 1.5 seconds back from Magician. He's 2.5 seconds in front of Typical though, but the thing is that both of the Novus drivers are really struggling with ERS, whereas Passy is not. So I think the strategy has been absolutely bang on, as Leopard is now coming in to get off of the hard tyres now, set of mediums. Really good stint from him, by the way, but he is going to fall down the standings here now. As Crispy saying, wow, NVR strategy is so swaggy. Absolutely was a really good call, actually, from the two runners. The issue is because they've been lacking with the ERS power, it's inevitable that situations like this is going to occur. Passy makes the move on Typical, no problem at all. In typically controversial circumstances, as we've lost one of the Aston Martins, and I believe we've lost Pat Leisure in the pit lane. So he chooses to retire as one of the FGE drivers now is out of this race. Bourbon is the sole FGE driver out there at the moment. But as it stands, Passy is making some very easy inroads on Novus here, because both of them struggling with their electrical energy consumption.
Yeah, Passy looking very quick at the moment, and so we'll be looking to try and get that next Haas now. Obviously, Tomasi now no DIS, 2 Magicians, so it's certainly on his own to beat 7 on the card for that Alpine Supremacy stuff for the ETE driver. Just looking out front as well, that is Scyther, who's put a massive gap on Sav. 2 seconds is now the gap between the two teammates, and that is now just going to leave Sav slightly vulnerable to Pasty once again, and Pasty could probably smell a possible chance of another podium in World.
Certainly is smelling that result, but it's all about whether Sav can try and hold off and battle from Pisty, and it is at the moment very, very close quarters here. Now he has got the ERS and DRS, and he's significantly closer here to Sav on this particular occasion, as Pisty has decided he's going to make the jump, and he's certainly now making that jump up to P3. Sav tries to hold on down in using the bit of toe, but the ERS management from him has also been fairly poor, and that now puts him down to P4, and it's all about whether he can now help from an attack maybe on Pisty. If Pisty's going to struggle with his ERS on this particular occasion, which he certainly has been under that little bit of pressure, Sav might still be in this.
Yeah, he certainly is. The ERS isn't looking too healthy on the Williams, but is very similar to the Mercedes of Pisty, so it just keeps him within touching distance, and as long as Sav doesn't make any regular mistakes, just keeps it on the track, he is more than in this, and definitely a nice little battle could brew between these two guys for this final podium slot. PSR versus FRA, it's the two top teams in the championship, so yeah, it should be good stuff. And yeah, let's hope we do try and get a couple of battles within the next 10 laps or so.
Worth having a very quick look as well in this conversation that's happening sort of around PSR and FRA, them being leading the championship. And as it stands at the moment, FRA are going to be extending their championship lead as it stands with some serious performances here. They are going to be well on their way to taking the crown of WRLD World Champions, but it's all going to be about the drivers' table on this particular occasion. As it stands, Otis flying high, 7 seconds in front of Cypher, his championship leader, and he's going to be well on his way to taking his first and the inaugural title of WORLD Drivers World Champion. We'll keep an eye out on his performance as he continues on, as of course the PSR and other FRA PSR driver are currently battling as it stands. But keep an eye out on Bunga Racing Team's Magician at the moment, putting VSR Finn under some serious pressure for P5 as it stands in 10 points.
Yes, he is. He's looking very good, and it's a great haul of points for Bunga Racing Team. They'll be very happy with how it is going so far. Oh, it was a big moment there for the McLaren Academy, a commentator's curse at its finest, but luckily for us and for Bunga Racing Team and Magician, he keeps it on the track very nicely and could be trying to hunt down VSR Finn, whose pace is slightly dropped off considering he was in that DRS stream for P3 at the start of the race. He'd be slightly disappointed with how this race has panned out.
Just getting word in from False Group Esports. The reason why Pat has retired from this race is because he had rear wing damage and general damage to the car as well, and that will be it for FGE Pat Lager as he now moves on to his next race in the esports world. Bourbon, the sole False Group Esports driver out there in the Aston Martin P13 at the moment, trying to close down on Liam Hardman, but 3 drivers in front of him all have time penalties, which certainly would fall in favour if he were to get closer to them. Certainly in the battle with P11 with Dodo, the gap between Dodo and Leopard, though, 16 seconds, probably too much for Bourbon to get in that particular battle. So the closest battle happening at the moment is happening for P9 and 8, but it's sort of switching between that and these two here, P3 and P4, Sav and Piste, still within close proximity of each other at the moment, as typical, still within close proximity of Passe, but Istvan Tomasi also now getting in close proximity here, so it's all going to be about, is Istvan going to be able to hold Passe back far enough? That typical potentially could put him under pressure and continue on with Novus's 7 and 8, or is Istvan just going to get overtaken?
Yeah, and then you've got Leopard as well, just lurking in the background, isn't he? 1.4 seconds. That gap has just been slowly decreasing throughout the last few laps. So yeah, just keep an eye on that Red Bull. Certainly a little dark horse for this P7 in that race. Unfortunately, a time penalty to his name, which won't do any favours, but the pace is certainly there, and so is the racecraft. So just keep an eye on Leopard, because I definitely think he could possibly snatch us P7 away from these 3 drivers.
Quibalda in the chat confirming it was rear wing damage for FGE Pat in the end, which saw him get removed from this race as he chooses to retire in the pit lane. We'll keep an eye on this battle happening between Finn and Magician at the moment. Finn getting closer and closer in the distance here to Magician, but in the end Magician didn't have enough straight line speed or enough track to be able to make that move into turn number 2. That's the Tamburello as we now head through into Variante Villeneuve. Magician, wider entry, but far better exit than Finn, who ends up track extending. Has definitely got another warning on his name, probably his last warning now before he gets into dangerous territory, as we've lost one of the it's Shazoo, it's LCR Leopard. He's spun going through towards Tosa into Villeneuve. So in that shocking circumstance, he was getting in close proximity to the likes of typical Passe and Istvan Tomasi. Now he's going to have to scrap for just the point.
That's a real shame just for the race, but Leopard as well, it's a real shame. He was looking pretty quick and definitely in a real contention spot for that P7. But yeah, a bit of a strange mistake, bit of a rare mistake from Leopard there, and will certainly be paying the price. A very lonely race now as well in the final 5 or 6 laps. 11 seconds is a gap in front and 9 seconds is a gap behind, so he's certainly in no man's land at the moment. Just looking this battle for P7 though, could possibly be hotting up here. Passy on the back of him now and possibly got the chance of taking this P7 spot.
Yep, in the battle at the moment happening for P5 as Finn and Magician still in a battle, as Magician just getting into his wing mirrors, just saying, look, I am here and I'm not going to be afraid to make any move here, as we keep an eye on the battle happening in P8 at the moment, as they're just making their moves into turn 1 at the moment, and Passy's still getting close, but Typical keeping a breathing distance on him behind. As we just, situation in the air with Leopard is a bit of a difficult one here, because turn 6 and turn 7 has been his sort of Achilles heel in this race, hasn't it? He's been under a lot of pressure, and he made a mistake in Q1 which saw him get qualify P18 as a result at Tosa turn 7, and just before turn 7 he spins out, and that's his battle for P7 all done and dusted. So it is really a horror show for anything related to the number 7 for LCR Leopard.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's not an ideal scenario for Shizou as well. Tough night for Shizou for the most part. So yeah, Shizou Venom in 14th as well, trying to see where he was. So yeah, at the moment 1 point scored for Shizou. Definitely not what they would expect, not what they would want when they're trying to battle for that P3 spot in the constructor standings. So yeah, real disappointment stuff for Shizou, but they'll be looking to try and bounce back next week, wherever that track may be.
ETE Passy now getting closer and closer to Istvan Tomasi and putting him under some pressure. He's already immediately trying to make the move done very early on indeed, as he tries to put some pressure down on the inside line, does Istvan Tomasi, but the move is very easily done. 3-second penalty on the cards for Istvan Tomasi means Typical could end up earning that position back, but Emine says P7, P8 seems secured for NVR, but it seems to me as if it's very much going to look like P7, P9 as it stands, if Typical can stay within touching distance. But is Istvan Tomasi going to be able to put more pressure on ETE Passy? As it stands at the moment, it's looking unlikely.
Just at the moment, Magician all over the back of Finn, really got some pace in this McLaren. He made a bit of a half kind of attempt at an overtake on it at turn 1 round the outside, but nothing really came to fruition. But yeah, Magician really looking quick here, and just keep an eye on the battle for P5, but also for P3 as well, because throughout that last lap as well, PSR Sav is looking pretty feisty as well. So now a couple of overtakes, a couple of battles just starting to brew throughout this field.
Yeah, that little battle happening with Magician as well. Magician's got plenty of VRS at his disposal, while Finn is actually struggling a little bit down in into the 20s at the moment, whilst over 60% available at Magician's disposal. So surely this is going to be an overtake for P5 here, as Bunga Racing Team are going to be happy to hear that their man is getting closer and closer and closer to Ferrari at their second home Grand Prix, Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. The McLaren is getting closer, and he is looking for it, but he doesn't want to get the move done with ERS, weirdly enough. And in the end, Finn does defend from it, but he could have had the move done if he just used overtake, if Magician chose to do so. Is he going to use it here? He's not. He's very happy to just hold on behind Finn, despite the fact that Finn's, as you can see there, the red light was blinking. He's struggling for ERS, whereas Magician's got plenty to use. He's just wanting to race here.
Yeah, it's intriguing to see this from Magician. Maybe he's just thinking the long game. He doesn't want to overtake now and then get overtaken the last lap. That possibly could be the thinking of the McLaren, but that always can come back to bite you. It's definitely a current theme when you see drivers. They try and play it smart, but sometimes it's just better to overtake the driver when you can. Track position is sometimes highly underrated, I think, in league racing. So Magician, he might shoot himself in the foot with that move. However, let's just keep an eye out on him and see if he goes for it again this lap. Yeah,
certainly looking forward to see what we've got over the next 3 laps in this little midfield battle, as Otis has just decided to set a fastest lap because he wants to. 16.383 and 10 seconds separating him from Scyther at the moment here. It's only unforced errors that can stop him from winning this title tonight, with 2 laps to go in this race. Magician, on the other hand, lost a little bit of time to Finn in that final corner here, and overtake now starting to be used, but now immediately turned off again. So is he now going to make the move here on Finn, as Finn is very slow on the straights, lacking the electrical energy to be able to power his car down the straight, makes the move, and the move is now done for P5. On Magician's case, Bunga Racing Team's driver now up to 5th place.
Just looking as well back for P3, started to turn into a bit of an interesting one. Sav up into that P3 spot, got P3 pretty simply, similar move to Magician on Finn there. That is now Sav in that podium spot, so looking good for PSR now at the moment. We're still with about 2 laps to go. still definitely a lot of work to do for Sav to try and keep that P3 spot his.
You know that bit where I said it looks like P7, P8 might be out of action for Novus? While that was happening, Passi was going side by side with Tomasi through Variante Tamburello. And now Passi has been relegated back down to P8, which is offering, would you believe, the position for Novus to get P7, P8 in this race after penalties. Typical is getting closer, and Novus, to be fair to them, have really messed around with Passi here, because Passi was absolutely the driver in full swing to get P7 in this. But whilst this is all happening, he's used up all of his ERS to try and hold off from battling with the Novus team, and now Novus are the favourites for this P7, P8 here. As a result of that one, fair play Amine, he made the call, and that is fair enough. So, good racing indeed from Passi as he gets closer and closer, tries to battle with Isfan Tomasi. Isfan Tomasi struggling with ERS, but Passi is also struggling as well, getting closer as he heads into Tamburello. But in the end, the move is not going to be easily done here. But he could make the move going into Villeneuve, but it would be a bold call if he wants to go for it. In the efforts, in the end, electing not to do so. We're on the penultimate lap of this race here.
Yeah, we are, and it's all starting to kick off now. Battle for P3, battle for P5, and obviously that pretty elusive battle for P7. We've been following this one all race. As we come into the final lap now, certainly all to play for, so very much so looking forward to this one.
Yeah, certainly looking forward to seeing what these drivers have got coming up all around them here as we start to finish up this race here, and what has been a very, very good race and a very good season in the end for Otis Lawrence. He is certainly going to be very happy to hear the infamous words as he comes across the start-finishing line, and I'm sure FRA will be happy to have one championship all wrapped up. It's all about that second one and what happens throughout the rest of this season as we now start the final lap of this race here in Imola. And as it stands at the moment, Pisti is still trying to put pressure on, but he's down to 2 and 1 and 0% ERS in the end as a result of being pushing too hard with his electrical energy. PSR are looking very happy to take a P2, P3 in the end in that little battle. Finn has lost all that time to Magician, and that's surely all about the ERS management as Passi's still trying to put pressure on Isfan Tomasi, but goes wide through Variante Tamburello as they head through Villeneuve. It's going to be an important overtake for Isfan Tomasi to get the move done for his team, but in the end chooses not to go for that move. Akos, 3-second time penalty on the final lap of this race. He's going to struggle, I think, to really claim any points here. Is Akos down in P15, and what has been a really awful race to say the least for the VSR driver. Passi has managed to make the move stick, and so far it might be now in the end 7 and 9 for the two Haas drivers and the two drivers racing for Novus Racing. What a race it has been indeed, but we have to go towards the front because it is all about this man here, and in the end it is all done and dusted. Otis Lawrence is the WOR champion of the world.
Wow, fantastic stuff there from Otis Lawrence. What a ride today, but what a drive all season. Thoroughly deserves Scyther, the championship protagonist this year, but let's be honest, was he ever really in it? He comes home in P2 though. It's still a fantastic season so far from him. Just remember, still 5 races left to go. Sav comes home in P3, Zel to make it double podium for PSR.
In the end, it will be 7-9 for Novus in the end, and they were battling hard. And fair play to this man here. LCR Leopard tried to battle through the ranks. A couple of spins, but it will only be the singular point for Shazoo's LCR Leopard. And it will only be a singular point for Shazoo. Full stop, as Venom is still trying to battle hard with the FGE driver of Bourbon for 12th place. But in the end, it isn't going to work, as Venom will have to just secure P13 in the end in that little battle, as Liam Hardman will finish in 14th, and what has been a tumultuous race at best and at worst a very disappointing race indeed for the Hungarian not-so-hero VSR Akos. He finishes in 15th place.
Yeah, strange run from Akos today, not a good one for VSR as a whole, but the main man is Otis Lawrence. He gets that Drivers' Championship. It's not obviously a Drivers' Championship related tournament, but he will still be happy with that one. It showcases his dominance. He has won every race this season, bar one. How many times can you say that in league racing? Not very many. So a huge congratulations to Otis on what is a very, very well-deserved World Championship.
Very, very good indeed, and Veloce will be happy to hear, I'm sure, that their man has managed to secure his first championship since joining the team, as he will be very happy to take the top step of the podium, because it is a fantastic race victory, league victory and performance all the way through the season for this man himself, Mr. Otis Lawrence, taking the top step of the podium and taking the World Championship trophy alongside that one. And a very good performance indeed from PSR as well to round up the second and third place positions respectively. Piste effectively overdrove the car towards the end of that race, and PSR are able to take at least some consolidation of a double podium finish in the end in this tournament. What a fantastic race it has been, and what a race as well. And I am so thoroughly happy to be announcing that Otis Lawrence is the WRLD Drivers Champion of the world. He takes the top step of the podium and takes the World Championship trophy alongside Scyther and Sav taking the final three. Hopefully we'll be able to speak to them later on in that one, as I asked Callum maybe just to drop an invite maybe to those the three drivers in the end. Piste finishing in fourth with Magician in fifth place, with Finn in sixth, Typical in seventh, Passy finishes in eighth with Isfan Tomasi in ninth, with Leopard in 10th. Those outside of the top 10, Dodo, Bourbon, Venom and Liam, Akos and then Farfo, Pat, Zephyr and Justin did not finish this race in the end. What a race it has been indeed, and I am certainly so happy that we are going to be speaking, hopefully, to those drivers later down the line, as we now just take another final look at what has been a championship-winning drive from a championship-winning driver from what is going to be a champion driver of the future in the world online esports in general. I am surely looking forward to that one. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to speak to Otis as well as, of course, the two PSR drivers in this one. We'll very quickly move over to Cal. In the end, it was a very interesting race that led to a very cracking performance. You know, your immediate thoughts on that one, Cal?
Yeah, you're right. It was a cracking race, maybe a little bit still in terms of the race lead, but in terms of everything else, it was very, very entertaining. Bit of a slow burner at points, but Joe, a very good race in the end, and yeah, produced some pretty good racing along the way.
Certainly indeed. So we're going to move forward then. We are still waiting for the two PSR drivers to join us, but we will then start, I guess, with the champion of the world himself, Otis Lawrence. You made the announcement not too long ago that you're moving over to PC. You're going to be moving over to PC with a championship behind you. You are now the champion of the world in this inaugural WRLD event. Must be thrilled with that one. What a performance this season.
Yeah, very happy with the performance this season. Driving the best that I've ever have at the moment, so I'm very happy to win a championship, and yeah, we're just got to focus on the team championship now and hopefully win that.
Yeah, that is going to be a question I was going to bring to you, actually, because, of course, your teammate finished in fourth in the end. He's been racing hard with the PSR boys. You guys are going to be leading the way now, obviously, towards trying to get that title. You are in the driver's seat for that one. You know, it's a question that's been on my lips, actually, surrounding FRA. You know, coming towards the end of the season, are we going to expect you to continue racing with the team towards the end of this season? Or are the team going to consider maybe fielding some junior drivers to see if they can create the next champion, such as yourself?
Well, I don't think I'm the right person to ask about that question because I don't really know about the lineups. But yeah, I think the moment we should keep displaying our best drivers at the moment, because this championship is very crucial, as it's the highest league pretty much. So yeah, we got to win this championship and just use our best drivers, I believe.
Well, solid performance from yourself, Otis, anyway. Well done on what has been a fantastic performance from yourself throughout this season. And obviously, keep fighting hard, and then FRA will become the champions themselves. And
thank you, man.
Thank you very much, man. It's been a pleasure. And unfortunately, it looks like we are struggling to get the PSR boys in here. So we are going to, I think, wrap it up here, actually. And we're going to move on. Because WRLD will be returning for the next event, which the next event is going to be a spicy affair because, of course, we've move on from Imola to another historic track in Belgium. That will be happening on the week of the 4th of the 11th, and that will be it from myself because that will be my final time here in WRLD because then we're going to be handing you over to the ever fantastic Callum, who's obviously going to be working alongside Warder for the rest of this season. Callum, it's been an absolute pleasure to be alongside you in the Legacy Division for WOR. Thank you very much for being alongside me for this one. We have crowned a champion together.
Yeah, we certainly have. It's been a great moment, not just for us, but for Xbox in general. I think we've all managed to witness probably what we'll look back on as what has been an exceptional driver. We'll look back in these times and think, wow, he was something special. Because I think when he goes into PC, we'll then realise how good he has been. So yeah, it's been a great season. It's been very amazing to just watch Otis Lawrence flourish and develop to be one of the best Xbox has ever seen.
Me and you have commentated over the likes of also Ron Hara as well, who obviously later on became an esports pro. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing where this man's going to go. We've just created history. Let's watch him create more history. Thank you very much for watching, and WOR will return in Belgium.